And every single person that was around was like, yeah, bye. and most of the people who ran the bigger leagues in chat, yeah, were like, are you kidding me? Yeah. Hi, D-Ray, you're fucking late.
Yeah.
Where? Oh, on YouTube? I hope we can't hear everything. Hold on.
What about the Discord audio?
You also have a thumbnail of just like you.
Yeah. D-Ray.
You have? Oh, and I can hear me on stream, D-Ray.
Yeah, that's what I was. No, they can hear us, D-Ray.
They can hear us.
guys can just focus on commentary. Completely your
Okay, what's going on, beautiful people? As you can see, we've had some technical difficulties this morning. Connection stuff, you love to see it. Welcome everybody to season number 5 of the NCP. I am the Grandmaster, and I also go by D-Ray, and I am your host for this season, as I was last season. We're super excited to bring you guys a brand new season of brand new coaches. It's going to be one hell of a good time, but I'm not alone. I am joined by my beautiful co-host, the champion of season number 4. OG Albina, gonna say hi, my man.
It's gonna be a good time. I hope you guys are all ready for season 5.
So guys, throughout the stream, do us a massive favor. If you can let us know if the music's coming okay, if it's too loud, if Owen's too loud, we could definitely make some adjustments as we go through. As you can see, we've had some issues with OBS, which is completely fine. We figured it all out. As we go, we'll make adjustments. So we always adjust on the fly like we do in Draft League, right? Find what's going on, adjust in there, win the game. We're gonna win this game. So, as you can see, on screen are the 16 coaches that are gonna be participating this season. We're gonna go through them real quick, talk about the rules, and just hop straight on into it. So, from left to right, top to bottom, this is gonna be the order of the actual draft stream. So, first overall, we have Olivia Sama, and the New Orleans Saints Snow. Number 2 overall is our champion, Golden Boy Rigged. Who knows? We have we have OG Alvina and the Miami Mints. We have Vepsis and the Helsinki Hydreigon's at number 3. And to be completely transparent, at this spot we did have Chimpact. Unfortunately, Chimpact had to drop through other reasons. He wasn't able to participate this season, which is completely fine. Lucky enough, we had Davion OW come in, step in mid-draft, and take a head on. So we have Davion OW, coach of the Vegas Golden D Knights. That's going to be up in the 4th spot. We have the previous champion before Owen. We have Ultra Player, coach of the New York Metagross. And then new coach to this season, we have Under the Radar, coach of the Maryland Torterrapins. Another new coach following up after that, Platinum Howler, coach of the Delta Glygars. Yours truly coming back with the San Diego Snugglers. We have Shuckle King, coach of the OK Rillaboomers. And then we have making his return as well, 6-Foot Hacks, coach of the Durham Dreadagons. Mid Pokemasters coming back, the Kentucky Torcats, our favorite Gen Bot owner. And then we have the South Texas Sableyes, coached by In Vivid Color, making his debut to the NCP. Making his return as well, we have Matt O'Shea, coach of the Montreal Milotic. And now we have, for a full season, JV, coach of the Atlanta Victinis. Last season, he was a replacement coach. This season, he's going to draft his own team and see how he does. We have a returning coach and 3rd commissioner of the league. We have Just Kurt, coach of the Walt Disneylanders. I know last season I totally butchered that. And then we have another new coach topping us off at the very end. We have Kyle A, coach of the Miami Dawn fans. So we have one star-studded lineup here, guys. There's going to be a lot of really good matchups. I hope you're super excited for it, as excited as we are this season. So we're going to go from left to right, explaining the rules of a draft league. If you've never done draft before, essentially the way this works, we've all been put a specific position. We did this fun thing in call where we did a spin of a wheel, a roulette wheel, that's going to determine what our draft picks were. Miss Olivia Sama is going to kick us off, following up with Mr. OG Albina. And we're going to go snake style until we get to 16, which is going to be Kyle A. At the start of the 2nd round, Kyle A will kick us off and have the first pick of the round and go back down to the very beginning, snake style like we said. So that's basically how a draft works, kind of like fantasy sports, very similar. We all get to pick Pokemon, we all have a specific point total that we have to meet, we all have to have 11 Pokemon, etc. Owen, do you want to talk about the rules, the stuff that we have for the battles for this season?
Yeah, I should totally be prepared and pull up the rules tab, but oh my goodness, I don't have it. Is it on the dock or?
It's on the server.
It's on the server. I'm sorry, guys. I was totally looking at chat and like responding to people there. League rules. Okay. So obviously each week, each battle is going to go up. You know, Coach 1 versus Coach 2. Whoever wins gets the W. Top 8 are going to make playoffs. I believe that rankings will be based off of record and then differential and then head-to-head, I believe, when it comes to like, you know, ties and seedings and stuff like that. Each team will have 11 Pokemon. We'll be drafting on a point system on a scale of 18 to 1. So the best Pokemon in the format, the Dragapults, you know, the Pokemon like that, the Torntees and stuff will all be at 18 points. And then, you know, the, bottom stuff at 1 and everything in between. Coaches have to make up 11 points. They have a 120-point budget. And yeah, other than that, battle clauses, pretty much most Smogon clauses are, going to be enforced, whether that be Swagger clause being that Swagger's banned, Sleep clause being only put one Pokemon to sleep at a time, rest doesn't count. Baton Pass, we are allowing, but only dry passing, so you can't pass any kind of stats with your with BP, and you can't pass a substitute in any way, shape, or form. You can't intentionally increase your evasion or lower your opponent's accuracy, and items and abilities that do so are banned in the NCP. You can't run OHKO moves, whether that be Guillotine, Sheer Cold, Fissure, stuff like that. Endless Battle Clause also applies, which I don't think that'll ever come up in the draft league match, but just in case someone's feeling extra crazy, we did, enforce that one. And then Moody Clause, being that Moody is banned. So Glalie and Octillery aren't going to be subbing and protecting and cheesing through people this season.
Yes, guys, so that's going to be the basic rules for the overall draft. Now, you guys can type in ! whichever your favorite team is, and that's going to give you guys a link to the actual channel for that coach, so you can go and subscribe to them. So make sure you guys do that throughout the entire stream. That's going to be super clutch. That way you guys can follow them as they go through the entire season. And if you guys have a favorite coach, make sure you guys spam it in the chat. Have fun with everyone in stream. Do us a massive favor, be as best you possibly can. Let's not try to troll anybody or be mean to anybody. Let's be a well-rounded community up in here, right? So also, if you guys haven't already, make sure you join the NCP Discord server so you guys have an opportunity to gain coach roles, so you can get pinged every single time they post their videos, so you can keep up in tune with them as you go out through the season. You guys can interact with them as well. So if you guys have a favorite coach, like maybe Kelly Under the Radar has been someone you've been following for a really long time, he's going to be there for you to chat to. So hop on in, it's always going to be a good time. So with that being said, like we talked about before, Miss Olivia Sama, coach of the New Orleans Saints Snow, is going to be our very first pick of the draft. We have her in call. I'm going to go ahead and pull her in before we even get started. Liv, if you want to mute yourself.
Hi. I already took care of that.
Nice. So I'm going to go ahead and reveal the spot. The very first pick of the NCP, we have, dun dun, drum roll please, Dragapult. Dragapult goes very first overall. Give us your thoughts on why this is the best Pokemon in the draft.
Okay, so as a lot of people know from recent drafts, I've liked to grab a lot more fun and mean picks first pick, and I decided I couldn't get Urshifu. That's way too standard. So I got myself Dragapult. Not a round one pick, but I decided to get it anyway. I just thought it was kind of cool. It has a little cool tail. It's transparent. I'm gonna make it actually transparent on thumbnails unlike other people. That's really all. Just thought it was cool.
Good stuff, Liv.
Good
Thanks,
stuff.
I tried.
A plus commentary. We love it. So this is the very first pick. The next pick that we have coming up is gonna be our champ, OG Albina. Tell us about the second pick.
Yeah, I'm not like Liv. I like to sweat. And I was gonna take Pult first over, if it ended up falling to me. Obviously it didn't because Liv loves to meme. So I ended up grabbing the next best thing in my mind, which is gonna be Urshifu. Really hard to switch into in a limited format. It just clicks Wicked Blow and you prosper. So my whole game plan is just trying to get in Urshifu as freely as possible throughout this whole season and click Wicked Blow. We saw Vestas do it last season, and it obviously worked wonders. So I'm hoping I can, replicate that. Hopefully, go back to back.
So Urshifu's over here hitting like an absolute truck. So hopefully it doesn't happen to, us, but we'll see how it goes. The next pick that we have is number 3 overall, going to Vepsis, a regenerator Pokemon. Question mark, question mark. We have Tornadus T. Torn T is extremely versatile in the draft league format. With the ability regenerator, it's super tough to deal with, especially with heavy duty boots, being able to come in and not take any hazard damage and basically get a little bit more health each time. A third of a health each time, actually, to be exact. And it's got great coverage. It's got Heat Wave, really strong hitting, Stab, Hurricanes. It is 70% accurate, but hey, to one's their own. You could always run Air Slash, but Hurricane may be a little bit better. Having access to U-Turn, to Knockoff, it's a good pivot. This Pokemon could be form fitted to any matchup, so Mr. Veps is going to be having a lot of fun with such a versatile Pokemon. Next draft pick we have is Spectrier. Tell us a little bit about Spectrier here with Mr. Davion.
Oh man, the broken ghost horse, super broken. Now if you guys follow any of the Smogon OU competitive scene, obviously Spectre was recently banned in OU and pushed to Ubers. Now keep in mind, this is the draft format, very, very different in, structure and how it plays. So Spectre and, definitely isn't as broken as it is in standard, that's for sure. We have it priced at, I believe, 14 points. So in draft, the success doesn't translate as much, but it's definitely a very solid Pokemon if you build correctly around it. If you have a good fighting to break through those normals and those darks and things like that, it has a phenomenal speed tier. It hits ridiculously hard. It can push through a lot of its checks and counters just with its sheer power. And obviously having access to Grimnay, that special Moxie, really, really pushing through a lot of teams. So if built around correctly, it can be great.
Oh yeah, and then coming in next we have Mew, picked up by Ultra Player. Oh, the Mew is going to be extremely versatile. Some can argue that this could be top 3 pick. Being able to do anything in the matchup, literally anything, gets any TR, gets any, basically you can get any movement in the game, ATM. Exactly. So essentially whatever matchup that's coming up, this thing can form fit itself to that matchup, being able to be a good pivot, getting access to all the status moves, being able to get access to rocks and now toxic spikes and spikes. This Pokemon could be basically whatever you want it to be. So that's going to be extremely scary for opponents to be able to prep for with Mr. Ultra Player. Next pick we have here is Zera Aura from Under the Radar. How do you feel about Zera Aura going this early?
Amazing Pokemon. Phenomenal spot for it to go to. Obviously that 143 speed tier is genuinely amazing. I believe it's one of the best in the game, in Dex right now. I believe only behind, things like Reggie Elecki and a Selgor and things like that. But Zera Aura isn't just a fast Pokemon. Pokemon. It's incredibly versatile. You go physical, you go special. It can, pivot with, Volt Switch is a really fast taunter. Bulk up and Calm Mind for setup. And then you can honestly just rip through a lot of teams with just like Plasma Fists and close combat. And it gets access to knock off and play rough and a bunch of crazy different coverage options. And that elite speed tier is always so valuable in the draft format.
Okay, guys, at the Nightbot, we're working on the Nightbot to get that to work on, so keep that. That's going to be a work in progress as we go throughout the draft. The next pick that we have is Tapu Leila. Tapu Leila, some could say going a little bit early, but still is a hard-hitting fairy type, a hard-hitting psychic type, getting a little bit of a nerf from Generation 7. Last gen, this got a boost within the terrain of 1.5 times, which is the equivalent of a choice specs. Now it gets the equivalent of a life orb of 1.3. So those stab psychics aren't going to be as strong, but still hits pretty hard. And it's one of those fairies that you do have to plan for because it can just wall break if you're not prepared for it, or it can get, it has Draining Kiss, I believe, and as well as with Calm Mind. So this thing can be really tough to deal with if you don't have any kind of taunt users or stall breakers or things like that. So Tapu Leila is going to be really tough to deal with if the matchup entails. Next one we have is, it's me, Garchomp. So Garchomp, I was really excited to actually get this. For those who have been following my PMU uploads, which is a Gen 7 league, I have Zygarde, and I actually wanted to get Garchomp in that league. I was lucky enough to get it here. In Gen 8, a little bit better, getting access to a little bit of a buff with Scale Shot, and being able to boost the speed at the cost of reducing defense just a little bit, gives it a little bit more potency to sweep teams. Access to Swords Dance, really good coverage on the special side, being access to Fire Blast for those steel types, getting access and coverage for fairies. We have Iron Heads, we have Poison Jabs. This thing can be super tough to deal with offensively as well as defensively, having Rough Skin and also Rocks. It can be run defensive. I'm really excited to have this Pokemon on the team. And next up we have Latios. I know you had Latios this last season. Tell us about it.
Say Latios has a 100% championship rate in Generation 8 in the NCP. So pretty smart pick by Shuckle King, who, as you know, has already won, 5 out of 6 championships in the Wi-Fi leagues he's participated in. Phenomenal Pokemon, incredibly versatile. It's insanely hard to switch into this Pokemon, especially in a limited format. You just drop Dracos and Psychics, and then, the occasional Aura Sphere, Mystical Fire, and you rip through teams. You also get access to Recovery. You can be an emergency defogger. You can Calm Mind up and sweep teams. It gets Agility as well, and Stored Power. So some cheesy, mono Psychic stored power sets can work if you don't draft your Dark type. So definitely an amazing pick by Mr. Shuckle King.
Victini. Victini is a Pokemon that I've always wanted to try. Victini hitting extremely hard with stab V creates. This thing could be an extremely potent wall breaker and have the versatility of a normal Pixie would, right? Straight 100s across the board. This Pokemon could be a breaker, it could be a sweeper, it could be support, it could be anything you need it to be. So this Pokemon could be extremely scary, and in the hands of 6-foot hacks, I know that he's used it really well in the past. So I'm super excited to see what he does, but not to us, of course. So Victini is going to be a Pokemon that we're definitely gonna have to look out for. And now we have Zygarde 50%. Speaking on that ground dragon era, go ahead and talk to us about Zygarde, Owen.
Love me some Zygarde. If I didn't have a top 2 pick and there wasn't Urshifu sitting on the board, this is definitely what I was looking to draft this season. This Pokemon's incredibly fat, and that Dragon Ground typing is absolutely amazing, especially in a generation that does not have Hidden Power Ice. This thing subs and coils and Dragon Dazes and just prospers. You really only need 1,000 Arrows. I am a firm believer that 1,000 Arrows is the most spammable move in the game. Having a ground move not, affected by immunities is phenomenal. So if mid builds are under great, he's in a good spot.
And then we have Tapu Koko, the king of Generation 7. Still pretty good in this gen. It's going to fall over to Invivid Color. This is the fast electric type. To who can say that fast electric types are necessary in a draft? Who knows? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But being able to have a base 130 Pokemon is really nice. Getting stab Volt switches is going to be amazing, as well as having access to U-turn. Having an electric type that doesn't get walled by any momentum move is really nice. And it can also be run physical with Wild Charge, and it's got Dazzling Gleam on the special side because it does have that secondary fairy typing. So Tapu Koko still does what it does in Gen 7. Maybe not as well as it did in the past, but still is a really potent threat. So Tapu Koko is going to be super scary to deal with. And then following the electric type trend, we have Zapdos. Tell us about Zapdos.
Zapdos, amazing Pokemon. In a generation that has heavy duty boots as an option for this thing, it's really difficult to take down. So it's a great pick from that. It also recently got access to Hurricane as some reliable, strong flying stabs. So you're not going to just see Fat Zap anymore. You're going to see this thing be offensive. Maybe even click agility and clean through a team. Really solid Pokemon, incredibly strong, and a really easy piece to build around, in all honesty. I definitely love Zapdos in Gen 8.
And Clefable goes next to JV in the Victini. So Clefable is a really good Pokemon versatility wise. It typically people could think of it as a fat Pokemon that's going to be that wall, but that's not the case. It does have access to be an offensive threat. Magikarp could be used in two ways, right? So it's not going to take any damage from any statuses, it's not going to take any damage just coming in on rocks. It also is not going to take any damage from any life or recoil, so it could be run offensively. Very versatile Pokemon. If you think of draft, you think of Clefable. This Pokemon is one of the kings of the format. Going late in round 1 is pretty good for it. Really good fairy. Could be debatably one of the best fairies in draft format alongside Sylveon and a couple others, but Clefable is a really good Pokemon to pick up real early if it's something that you're looking forward to build around in your draft. And then we have Lando T going really late to Kurt. Tell us about this one.
The King, this is a Pokemon that I feel in Generation 8 draft has been very much so undervalued because of the fact that it did lose Z-moves, which does suck for landers. Throwing off big Flyzies was, you know, one of the big main allures of this Pokemon, but it's still absolutely amazing otherwise. Its defensive utility skyrocketed with the loss of hidden power. It also finds easier setup opportunities in a lot of matchups. That ground flying typing with no hidden powers and access to intimidate, amazing a bulky pivot, amazing Scarfer, amazing setup sweeper with rock polish and swords dance. I've even used Calm Mind before because you can get it to work. Crazy bulk, crazy strong, really versatile Pokemon. No Kurt will do well with it.
As the slide changes over, I can't help to smile. Dracovish is near and dear to my heart. Going to the very last coach of the very first round, we have Kyle A taking Dracovish. To those who followed my BBR run, you're no stranger to Dracovish. His QB1, this is near and dear to my heart. Some say that this thing's broken, some say it's mediocre in draft. You never know, but at the end of the day, this thing hits so hard with the Vicious Rend. If it's going to go first, the base power boosted by Strong Jaw is going to be absolutely super tough to deal with. This Pokemon is obnoxious if you don't have if you don't have a bulky water type, if you don't have a water absorber or storm drain Pokemon. Dracovish is just going to be that mon that's just going to be breaking down, and you just switch in and you can't switch in for too long before it just becomes too much overwhelming. So we have the very last pick going to the very first round. So now we have a recap, right? So what stands out to you the most? Which Pokemon are you surprised that went late? Which Pokemon are you surprised that went in the first round?
So my surprises as for things that went late, I think Zygarde went very late. Zygarde and Coco are obviously steals at that point in the draft. And as you mentioned, like, you know, right before that Vish pick with the Landers Therian, I think that Pokemon's incredibly undervalued, like I said in this gen. So Kurt getting it that late is crazy. I think maybe around when Lele is a bit of a stretch. You know, you tell me that in Generation 7, you know, I'd say you're crazy for allowing it. But in Gen 8, it just doesn't hold the same, you know, oomph to it in my mind. So maybe that one was a little bit early. But again, it's all dependent on the player and what they want to use and what they use well. Like, I'm not a big Vish guy, but you know, if you use it well, like Mr. Josh has the last couple of seasons, it's obviously worth the spot. So all depending on the coach, but maybe Lele was the one I'm a little iffy on that early.
So solid picks all around from top to bottom. The very first round is going to be the foundation of what these coaches build around. Guys, I just want to make you guys a service announcement. The Nightbot is now working, so type exclamation point your favorite coach in the chat, and you guys will get a link to their YouTube channel so you guys can follow them more.
Really quick, is it team name or is it coach?
It is team name. It is team name. So exclamation point Don fans, exclamation point Ments, exclamation point Snugglers. If you guys would like to follow your coach, it'll give you a link to their channel. So make sure you guys type that team name, and then it'll give you that link so you guys can follow along. So with that being said, I want to hop right on into it. Like we said before, it's going to be a snake format. So the very first pick of the second round is going to fall to Mr. Kyle A, and he's going to pair Dracovish with Azumarill. So we have water on water action. We have a dragon, we have a fairy. The dragon fairy steel core has started, and they're both mono water type, so this is going to be a fun thing to see. Azumarill hits absolutely like a truck. Mr. Just Kurt used it last season, and he used it to perfection. For those who followed his playoff run, he was able to chew up a sludge bomb from a Galarian Slowking to clutch up a victory for him to move on to, I believe, the finals. That was a semifinals matchup. So Azumarill hits like an absolute truck. It's got those belly drum sets. It's able to run real fat with the Whirlpool Parasong sets. So this thing's going to be one of those Pokemon that's really tough to deal with, and it hits like a truck. It's going to be really versatile even in draft. To some may not even understand. So it's going to be a good time. Next Pokemon that we have is Aegis Slash. Aegis Slash is, well, that's not the pick. Hey, see, technical difficulties. Give us a little bit more insight on Azumarill, Owen, while we get this fixed up.
Yeah. So like you said, Kurt used it amazingly, and I think when you have Azumarill, I think the key to using it well is obviously using that versatility, using that great defensive typing to your advantage. Water Fairy is phenomenal. Now you usually think of Tapu Fini, or maybe even Primarina when it comes to something like that. But, you know, if you use the Azumarill well to take those natural hits, not only belly drum up, but also use it as a breaker with that band and clean through teams with Aqua Jet or Assault Vest. I think Assault Vest is probably one of my favorite Azu sets, to be completely honest, just because, again, that pretty fat HP set with the AV can be really difficult to deal with that huge power ability.
Nice. Guys, thank you so much for dealing with us through the technical difficulties. Next pick, we have Aegis Slash. So Aegis Slash is picked by Just Kurt. Aegis Slash going in the second round is pretty insane. It did get nerfed, but the nerf is not going to invalidate it from being a very first round pick. So this is a steal in the second round. Having the Ghost and Steel typing, being able to run physical and special is super duper clutch. It also still gets access to that clutch move, which is gonna give them the reduction of attack and basically both attack and spin. Is it just attack, right? Physical attack?
Just attack. It used to be -2 last gen, and now it's -1. But this is also a great ice resist for Kurt as well with the landers. If you can find good wish support, this core is gonna be very difficult to switch into defensively and deal with offensively. Great pick by Kurt.
Definitely. So Celesteela, give us your insight on Celesteela here, because I know you're a big Celesteela fan.
Amazing Pokemon, and the fact that this fell, this is going to be the steal of the round for sure. Like, AG is crazy. Celesteela falling to round 2, even if it's early round 2, is absolutely nuts in my mind. I think in Galadex this is a top 5 mon. It's definitely not as good as it was in Gen 7, but I still think it's absolutely amazing. You can go that Fat Leech Protect or Sub Leech, Sub Toxic type, or you can go offensive with auto, plus its crazy coverage. This Pokemon's incredibly versatile. That Steel Flying typing is so hard to push through, especially if you pair, grab checks and counters to its offensive checks. So amazing Pokemon, crazy pick by JV in round 2.
Going with the Steel route, we have our third Steel Pokemon being taken in a row. We have Excadrill. Excadrill is a super cool Pokemon that I love to use. This thing is a great wall breaker. And giving that buff with the rapid spin, this is going to be one of the benefactors to that, giving that +1 speed, not having to run Choice Scarf all that much anymore. You can still have that set to work on. Getting access to Sand Rush, it can be a really potent Sand Sweeper. So maybe we see a little trend here with the Montreal Milotics. Maybe we're going to grab a Sand Setter moving forward. But Excadrill is going to be a really scary Pokemon for our teams to deal with. Being able to be run defensively as well. We've seen Wolf Glick do that with Assault Vest sets. So Excadrill has a lot of versatility to it, not just that sweeper or wall breaker potential. So Excadrill going to be a super scary Pokemon to deal with. And then next one we have Dual Terrain. Tell us about Dual Terrain with Mr. Invivid Color.
Definitely interesting. Now, obviously, they're not going to worry about each other's trains too much. It's the rest of the team that does, make me question on, how they're going to deal with Double Terrain. But obviously, Rillaboom's an amazing Pokemon. Very potent wall breaker. It breaks through the grounds that Coco does not appreciate, with obviously that priority stab, grassy glides in terrain. Really does rip through them. It gives him a great Volt Turn core of Coco plus Rillaboom. He will never have to worry about a bulky water type, literally ever. So that's obviously really solid. He can set up with Swords Dance and Bulk Up. Great Pokemon. So we'll see how the rest of his team pans out.
Necrozma going to mid Pokemaster in the Kentucky Torcats. I know mid has used this in the past and he's used it to great success. This Pokemon is extremely scary. They compare it to Mew, getting a lot of the similar coverage. There's a lot of the similar stuff, being able to set up rocks, being able to be a setup sweeper with access to, I believe, Iron Defense. I think it gets Calm Mind as well.
Iron Defense, Calm Mind, Dragon Dance, Swords Dance. You got options. It's a great Pokemon.
So this Pokemon can be extremely scary to deal with. Access to stored power, this mon, if you're not prepped for it, will tear through your team. So Mid has used it to great success in the past, and I'm sure that he's going to do it again this season. The next pick that we cover here is Melmetal. Tell us about Melmetal going in the second round, the fallout to what we've seen the Melmetal start from the beginning and end of the gen.
Like you said, it's crazy because I remember early gen, this one had so much hype around it, and it's great. I love Melmetal. I've used it multiple times myself. Phenomenal Pokemon, but it was seen as like one of the best mons in the format back, a couple months ago. It's definitely fallen off. It definitely has some pretty consistent checks and counters, but it's still an amazing Pokemon. I think if you're creative in your building process and you don't throw a band on it every week, it's absolutely amazing. Obviously, it has Iron Defense sets. I think another great set on this thing is Assault Vest. I think it's an amazing abuser of an AV because there's fat HP stat, it's fat Phys Def stat, and then making up for that with the Assault Vest, which is really solid coverage, and Iron Fist boosted double Iron Bashes and Thunder Punches and, Ice Punches. Great Pokemon, so I'm sure Leo will make it work.
Oh yeah, paired up with Victini, very scary. Now we have our another Tapu leaving from the board. We have Tapu Fini being paired with Latios, which is an interesting pairing, having that dragon with this fairy, because it gets access to that Misty Terrain. Is going to nerf the moves of Mr. Latios, and it still works both ways, right? And for those who don't understand, can you explain a little bit more how the Misty Terrain mechanic works?
Yeah, so basically, Dragon moves are going to be nerfed. I don't remember the exact number, but they're going to be reduced in power if the Pokemon getting hit by the Dragon move is touching Misty Terrain. So it doesn't matter that Shuckles Latios isn't touching the terrain. If he's attacking something that is on the ground, say he's attacking a Tangrowth with Draco Meteor, it will be reduced in power, but say he's attacking a Latios with Draco Meteor, it will not be. So things off of the ground won't have their, Dragon type, moves reduced. or the damage they take reduced, but things on the ground will take less, which is a bit of a negative side. But Fini Latios is still a pretty solid core. Latios isn't a Pokemon that's 100% dependent on its Dragon Stab. While it does love dropping Dracos, it's definitely something that Shuckle can work around. And I know Shuckle loves just fat, bulky builds, and I think with Fini, Latios can definitely do that. If he grabs up another, solid pairing.
Oh yeah, Tapu Fini is a phenomenal super thick water type Pokemon, getting access to Iron Defense, and now they gave a Draining Kiss. This Pokemon could be extremely tough to deal with, so we'll see what you can do with it this season. Next mon that we have is me, Heatran. So Heatran's going to be the next pick coming up. Now, my pick with this was, my thought process with this is I wanted to cover some weaknesses that Garchomp is going to be kind of scared of, right? So Garchomp doesn't like ice types. Heatran doesn't mind them. Garchomp hates fairy types. Heatran doesn't care. This Pokemon is going to be great to be able to switch in on the checks that want to come in to be able to check Garchomp, and as well as being able to take the pressure off of Garchomp to set up Stealth Rock. That's really, really nice. Wanted to grab a Steel type that doesn't have access to Stealth Rock, so want to get that early because I know those are a dime a dozen. And going through the draft, I sniped a certain friend on accident. So I'm really happy to have Heatran on the squad to be paired up with Garchomp here. Cinderace is coming up next. I know you had Cinderace recently in the BBR. Can you tell us a little bit more about Cinderace?
Great Pokemon. Really, really fast, strong offensive pivot. Obviously great utility moves like Taunt, Super Fang, Court Change to, flip the hazards on the other side. And it's a great pairing with Lele, actually. I like it a lot with Lele in the sense that you really do break through those psychic resist like the steel types of the world, and really punish them a lot. You can break through a lot of darks as well, though Lele doesn't really care about them too much with obviously Stab, Moonblast, but in case you are choice and they want to pivot into you can always, chip those down with U-turn and high jump kick. You have access to bulk up to potentially be a setup sweeper of your own, which is also very solid. But most of the time with Cinderace, you're going to be clicking Pyro Ball and U-turn, and that's about it.
Nidoqueen going with the team with Zera Aura, which is actually really cool because one of the best checks to Zera Aura is Nidoqueen. So you can definitely see the thought process behind Mr. Under the Radar here. Nidoqueen is a phenomenal ground type with the secondary typing being poison. Having access to toxic spikes is super nice, and being actually touching the ground. So for those who don't understand what that means, it's not a grounded poisoning, even though this is a ground and poison type, ironically enough. But this poison type is actually touching the ground, meaning that on entry it does soak up toxic spikes. So basically not having to remove it with Rapid Spin or with Defog, it just does it automatically, which is super clutch for him, and being able to set them up himself. As well as Stealth Rock, this can be a phenomenal breaker with access to Sheer Force and great coverage, getting his stabs boosted by Sheer Force, as well as like Ice Beam, Thunder Punch, great coverage. So this Pokemon is going to be really tough to deal with defensively and offensively, so that's going to be super nice for the Torterrapins there. And Ferrothorn, another bulky steel type, leading to the Metagross. Tell us about Ferrothorn paired up with Mew.
Yeah, so definitely very solid pickup by Josh. One of the best bulky steals in the format, especially again with Hidden Power being gone this gen. Really, really difficult and annoying mon to take down. I think that Mew is a Pokemon that definitely appreciates Hazard Stack in the sense that if you are running a setup Mew, it doesn't have the most immediate breaking power and is going to need chip on things. Even if you are Sword Stance or Nasty Plot and you're getting that +2, you're not going to OHKO a lot of things. So getting up a Spike and Rocks or a couple Spikes depending on the matchup is actually genuinely awesome. It's a great defensive mon as well, throwing off Leech Seeds and protects and staying healthy throughout the whole game. I've even seen cool stuff like Curse before. I've seen Iron Defense Body Press. This thing getting Body Press this gen is awesome as well. So just an overall great blanket check to so many different things, and obviously two ridiculously annoying and bulky Pokemon for Mr. Josh to play with this season.
Buzzwole, phenomenal fighting type Pokemon, fighting and bug typing. This is a really great wall breaker, as well as a defensive Pokemon that could with access to Roost. This thing was shown to be an absolute threat by Mr. Just Kurt last season. I actually got 6-0'd by this Pokemon, so this is a really tough mon to deal with.
To you, yeah.
To me. So Buzzwole is a phenomenal fighting type Pokemon. It's being paired up with Spectre. You can see the thought process here. Spectre doesn't like those dark types, which Buzzwole can deal with still stabs. And if there's a normal type that's going to come in to be immune to the Shadow Balls coming off from Spectre, Buzzwole is able to take care of that. So you can see the defensive prowess in the pairing here. It's a great synergy between these two Pokemon, so it's going to be interesting to see what he does with the season. And the next one we have is Galarian Slowking. I know that we actually have Vepsis and Call, so we're going to pull him in and have him tell us about his pick here. Vepsis, tell us about G Slowking, my man.
Yeah, so every coach as they are going to be drafting, they're going to be looking and finding the steals of the draft. And to me, Galarian Slowking at 10 points was to me that, and I had it throughout the end of the last season, and I was really happy how it was able to perform. Obviously, the meme is that it's going to be Regenerator Core with the Taunty, and people are going to be hating facing that. But besides that, I think it's a very slept on mon in Wi-Fi scene. I've seen and heard that it's gaining popularity on Showdown Leagues, but in the Wi-Fi scene, I'm excited to showcasing that mon. how good it's gonna be, and I think the mon that I'm looking after in a round 3 will be making up for the fact that I'm jumping on this mon a little early, because I'm pretty confident that Ogalbina and Olivia Sam, I have no reasons to pick what I have in store in next round.
Nice. It's
Definitely
good to see.
fair.
Thanks, Vestas. It's good to see a Pokemon like this gain traction. To be able to introduce to a new generation and be able to hop into the draft they scene is cool to see. So shout out to Vepsis for picking Slowking early. We have Corbin Knight. Tell us about your pick.
Speaking of Mr. Vestu's in call, he had this core last season, and I definitely really liked it. As much as I would have loved to have Heatran, I ended up picking up Corbin Knight. It gives me a great fairy pivot, really not caring about 90% of them, even if they do have that mystical fire coverage. Corvi is so unbelievably fat and annoying, and the main thing that it gives me is slow momentum. Slow momentum is really key in my mind, and when you have Urshifu, getting that slow pivot out, getting an Urshifu free, so you can just click Wicked Blow. And that's obviously great. It can be a setup threat with bulk up or iron defense plus body press. Like I said, it pivots, it defogs, it roosts, it pressure stalls things. It's overall really fat and annoying, and it helps out Urshifu and enables it to do exactly what it needs.
With the next pick, we have Liv in call. Tell us about Thundy T. What's the thought process here with Dragapult?
Okay, so it was Thundy T. Just want to make sure. So Thundy T was pretty cool. Unlike Dragapult, this is a real pick. Thundy T has gotten phenomenal this with options like Boots. It's a cool mon as well because it's a really good electric switch in that doesn't have to be a ground type, and it can still pressure them with options like Psychic Plot, etc. In my opinion, Boots kind of saves this Pokemon. Otherwise, I'm not huge on it, but I like it in practice and on paper, so I thought it'd be cool to draft around. It also has Clouds, and it's a Cloud League. Enough said.
Cloud League.
Cloud League. Thanks, Liv. So here's the recap for round 2. So just to give my thoughts a little bit, I'm actually super surprised to see Celesteela and Aegis Slash in the second round, but hey, some coaches have a specific plan in mind and they're executing it now. So being able to see some really good cores being formed even with only 2 Pokemon on their team, you can see the synergy between Spectre and Buzzwole. You can see the offensive threats that we have on teams, specifically more so with the offensive water Pokemon that we have with Mr. Kyle A. We see the Regenerator core starting to form with Vepsis. There's a lot of things that the coaches want to execute, and they want to do that early to claim those pieces to not get sniped. There's a couple different ways that you can go about drafts, right? You can go about getting the next best pick that's on the board and then work on synergy later, or you're just going to have a plan in mind and try to execute that as best you possibly can. You could definitely see that trend happening here with these coaches. So with that being said, we're gonna wheel back around and then see. I think that Liv's still in call. We're gonna pull her back
she's
in
still
because
in here. She just muted.
Hi, Liv. So we're gonna go to the next pick. So she's gonna be the wheel coming and starting us off, kicking us off for round number 3. The very first pick of this round is going to be Zarude paired with these 2.
Yes. So I guess for anyone who doesn't know, I'm the Zarude queen on Wi-Fi. Probably not on Showdown, but I am on Wi-Fi, so I'll take that. I'll take what I can get. I was very indifferent about this pick or my round 4 pick, which I got both, but I was very indifferent on which to get. My good pal Jake, who I was drafting with, shout out to Jake, he told me that this Pokemon he noticed as well in the Showdown scene, has been getting a lot of traction, and thought that there might be players on Wi-Fi who have not drafted Zarude and wanted it for the thumbnails. D-Ray. In general, though, I thought it was kind of... He did bring up that point, though, which I thought was very good, about how a lot of people might want to draft it for the content. And I was like, you know what? I can't pass on this. And I like Zarude a lot. It paired here. It was really nice Ghost Switch in. It's really good for momentum here. So I just thought it made a lot of sense to get on this team. I did patch it a lot later on the ice because it's obviously building, but I'm not too worried about that. I have a lot of ice killers. So
love it, guys. The next pick that we have here is Latias. Tell us about your pick, my man.
Latias, it pairs phenomenally with Corbin Knight defensively. It's a lot like in BBR where I had Celesteela plus Latias. They pair together very nice defensively. Latias is also very solid with Urshifu in the sense that it did get access to Baton Pass this generation. If you remember the rules that we went over before the stream, we are allowed to dry pass. So I can't pass Calm Minds or Agility to anything, but I can dry pass out as momentum as I bait in those dark types for Urshifu to come in and either keep up momentum with U-turn or click close combat or click predicted wicked blow or something like that. It also has great offensive coverage and its stats obviously being great just like Latios and having mystical fire and aura sphere, calm mind and agility and roost and setup threats and defog and healing wish, which is also very nice for Urshifu. So genuinely amazing Pokemon. I love the Latias. I won with them last season and I'm looking one with one this season.
Nice. Now continuing the dragon trend, Vepsis, tell us about Hydreigon pairing up with your regen core here.
Well, besides being obviously my mascot and my favorite mod, I think it has phenomenal synergy with the Galarian Slowking. When you think about Galarian Slowking's 3 weaknesses being Ground, Ghost, and Dark, Hydreigon synergizes perfectly, covering those for myself. And going forward, I think it was one of the higher tier mods that I think was one of the best fits for me going forward. And it provides me the Dark typing that I so highly value of. And obviously, I'm very comfortable with the mod. I'm excited to use it this season. It gives me a little bit of momentum core as well that I can build upon going forward. And obviously, besides that, I think it's only that I have to worry about that I cover my ice weakness going forward. But that's pretty easy to pass out with steel and water type that I still need to pick.
Very nice. It's always good to take your mascot pick, right? Thanks, Epsis. All right, guys. So the next pick that we have here is Reggie Elecki. Reggie Elecki is a very controversial pick in the draft league scene right now, right? Extremely fast electric type with its ability being able to boost its own stab electric type moves. Hits like an absolute truck, but obviously there is an immunity. Grounds. So is it walled by many grounds? Yes, it is. Is it super strong and super fast? Yes, it is. To one's dismay, you never know. We have it going 3rd overall to here with Davion and the Vegas Golden D Knights. Now, mind you, he did take over a team. This is the team of the previous coach that was drafting at this time. So he decided to stick with it. He's still going to be on his team. We'll see how he does with it. It's still super fast. It's still super strong. Does it have its weaknesses? Yes, as amongst his other things, but we'll see how it does. We'll see how it does. There's going to be a lot of question marks that are going to be answered this season. Next one we have is another fast electric type, Thundy. Go ahead and tell us about Thundy.
Thundy T, a real electric type. Very, very solid Pokemon. Great speed tier, and I believe it's 111. It's either 111 or 112, so it's just peaking above those 110s, which is actually incredibly valuable because there are so many strong, potent mons in that 110 speed tier. So having that to always guarantee outspeed those is awesome. You get Prankster Shenanigans with Defog and Thunderwave, and even Prankster Bulk Up, which I think is a really slept-on option with Big Thundy. Obviously, access to boots to, more reliably set up. It does miss the, option to run Z moves, but it's really a really strong mon. It gets Grass Knot for ground types. It gets coverage in Psychic. It gets Sludge Wave for the electric resisting grass types and things like that. So this Pokemon, genuine threat if, not played around correctly. And he does have that great Spike Stack, which I think Thundy appreciates so much. So definitely a solid pick by Josh.
Salamance is here. Mascot pick of Mr. Ojo Albino, but I'll take over on this one. Salamance is a phenomenal dragon type, pseudo legendary dragon type. Is going to be really good both physically and specially, giving access to Hurricane this gen. That's going to be super nice stab for it. Being able to run those Moxie sets to sweep a team is going to be clutch. Being able to be a bulky defogger is really nice. There's a lot of versatility with Salamance and with some really clutch resistances. This thing's going to be tough to deal with defensively and offensively. And it's going to be paired up with Nidoqueen and Zera Aura. So Nidoqueen can switch in on those ground types that both Zera Aura nor Nidoqueen appreciate, because that is a weakness that both Pokemon share. Ice type is starting to become a little bit of an issue, but being able to come in on those ground types and intimidate them down is going to be super clutch for his team, and we'll see how he does with it this season. So Salamence is going to be super clutch. Next Pokemon we have is Keldeo. Tell us about Keldeo with the Delta Glygars here.
Another Pokemon I love, and another Pokemon that breaks through fat, annoying steel types for Big Lele. This Pokemon often gets a little bit of crap in the draft scene just because of the fact that it doesn't have the deepest move pool in the world. It basically hits its stabs, which are great in Scald and Hydro Pump Surf, and then, Secret Sword and Focus Blast. It can Calm Mind Sweep. It gets access to Icy Wind, which is also nice in specific niche instances, but it also got Flip Turn this gen, which is awesome. Getting a pivoting move with Keldeo to bait in those switches, get the free U-turn out, especially those bulky grasses that are going to invite in Cinderace, and then you start U-turning and flip turning all over the place. So I really like this core from from Mr. Platinum Howler. This is also a very potent setup sweeper, like I said. Breaks through things with the specs, gives great speed control with the Scarf. Amazing Pokemon, and one of the NCP kill leaders. So definitely a very solid pick.
That is a fun fact. Next Pokemon coming up is Rotom Wash to the San Diego Snugglers. Now, my thought process behind this is I wanted to be able to create a little bit more defensive utility with my entire team. Right now, I didn't want Heatran to be pressured into switch into Ice types the entire time because Heatran could be run offensively in some matchups. So I wanted to bring in Rotom Wash to be able to cover that, as well as be a ground type switch in for Heatran because it is 4 times weak. Both of my Pokemon have 4 times weaknesses. We have Ice on Garchomp and ground on Heatran. So I wanted to get a Pokemon that can cover both, as well as have really good utility in Volt Switch and a bunch of status moves. I love status. It's got Toxic, Will-O-Wisp, and Thunder Wave, which is really nice. Being able to Volt Switch out, being able to have Defog to get rid of hazards is super duper clutch. Rotom is also able to be a potent sweeper or a wall breaker with access to Nasty Plot, so there's a lot of really cool things that Rotom can do. This is the first Rotom form that is taken off the board because it is probably the best. I'm a little biased with Rotom Mo, but undebatably Rotom Wash is a little bit better. So I want to get a Pokemon that really fits in well with my first 2 picks. So I'm super happy that I was able to pick up Rotom Wash. Scizor to Shuckle King, one of those Pokemon that is slowly starting to make its way back into like real viability because it's kind of fallen off in the beginning, coming back. Tell us about Scizor.
Scizor is an amazing Pokemon. This gives him his Dragon Fairy Steel Core, which is obviously very nice. Not necessarily a required thing, but I think a Steel type is, and Shuckle got a great one. This Pokemon breaks through everything that Latios doesn't appreciate in Dark types, and in Fairy types is obviously awesome. It gives him a little bit more momentum. He does have Latios with Baton Pass, but often I feel like with Latios, because of how strong it is, when those switches come in, you just want to punish them and bully them down. When Scizor can grab momentum for your team, that's obviously awesome. It gives him another defogger, gives him a setup option in Swords Dance, which is obviously very, very solid. Amazing Pokemon, gives him great priority as well. And again, not only breaks things for Latios that doesn't appreciate, but also resists them as well. And he has a great fire resistant Tapu Fini, which is all really Scizor cares about, to be completely honest. It can kind of sit in front of most other things. So definitely solid defensive core by Shuckle King.
And Togekiss coming off the board next, and to Mr. 6-Foot Hacks, coach of the Derm Druddigons. Togekiss is a solid pairing with Melmetal. Defensive synergy off the chain. Melmetal hates ground types. Melmetal hates fighting types. Togekiss is able to switch in on both, being 4 times resistant to fighting types and immune to ground types. Togekiss is a phenomenal cleric and can be really annoying with its Serene Grace, flinching potential with air slashes alongside with Thunder Wave. Togekiss can be a really good cleric for his team, like I said before. So Togekiss is here, you can tell, to be a defensive pivot for Mr. Melmetal. So this is going to be a solid pairing with that Pokemon, and the Victini can come in and be freely destroy the rest of his opponent's teams. And Victini can also take that pressure off and having to deal with those grass types as well. So Victini is able to open up a little bit more versatility wise. So Togekiss is a solid pick for the Durham Druddigons. And now we have the second Rotom form, Rotom Heat, going to mid Pokemaster. Tell us about Rotom Heat.
Yeah, Rotom Heat is awesome. This is great for mid in the sense that it gives him a phenomenal Ice Resist for Zygarde, and obviously grabbing Ice Resist when you have a Pokemon that's 4 times weak to it is very important, as D-Ray did earlier with the Rotom Wash. So this is the next best thing. I will say it is a bit unfortunate because his team does not appreciate bulky waters at the moment. When one of your water killers is also weak to it, it becomes a little bit iffy, but definitely an amazing Pokemon nonetheless. It gives him hazard removal, it gives him Volt Switch for momentum, and getting in those setup sweepers and Zygarde and Necrozma, especially if you can get hazards later on and chip things down, get maybe, a more strong, potent wall breaker, it's going to make those fat, annoying setup threats so much more annoying to deal with. And it also rips through the grass types that 1,000 Arrows is resisted by. So great pick by mid.
Jirachi, this is actually the other steel type that I was debating. I love Jirachi. Jirachi is a phenomenal Pokemon. Pure steel type, it's one of the pixies, so it has base 100s all around. Being able to be a bulky pivot, being able to be an offensive threat, getting really great coverage on both the physical and the special side. This is going to give him a solid steel type to his fairy, so he's got that fairy dragon steel core that's going to develop a little bit. And also with Rillaboom, having that grassy terrain that eliminates or reduces the weakness to ground that the Jirachi does have. So that's actually really nice for Vivid. Jirachi is a really potent steel type that's going to give him a lot of versatility on his team. Next one we have is Urshifu Single Strike, Rapid Strike, I should say. Tell us about Rapid Strike on returning to the Montreal Milotics.
A very, very solid Pokemon. I know Matt has used it before in the past and shown, to use it very, very well. I believe he had it on his winning BBR season, which is obviously very solid. So he's definitely the guy who's drafted Urshifu the most in the draft scene. Obviously not as solid as the Single Strike, but still a great Pokemon nonetheless. The fighting plus, Water Stab is very, very solid. Annoying, it gets U-turn option for momentum, Aqua Jet for priority, solid coverage for bulky waters and Thunder Punch, and it can obviously pivot around with U-turn and bulk up and win games and things like that. So definitely solid Pokemon by Matt, and really rips through a lot of things that the rest of his team doesn't appreciate.
You love me some Darmanitan. Darmanitan is a phenomenal, both forms, Galarian and the Unovan. Darmanitan, the pure fire type, this thing is going to be coming in and destroying grass types. This Pokemon, if you don't have a switch into it, is going to hit like an absolute truck. Getting access to Sheer Force, getting those boosted Stab and Sheer Force boosted Flare Blitzes is going to be absolutely obnoxious. And being able to also have access to U-turn to be able to pivot on his checks. This Pokemon is going to be really tough to deal with, as well as having access to heavy duty boost. Now it's able to come in multiple times on rocks and it does not care. So that JV is going to be doing something pretty special with this. Is paired up with Celesteela and Clefable. It's cool to see some offensive presence on this team because it's getting a little bit passive. There's obviously some versatility you could do with Celesteela that could definitely be run offensively. Being able to have an immediate offensive threat on this team is going to be super nice for JV and the rest of his team. And then we have Raikou with just Kurt, who he had last season. Tell us a little bit more about Raikou, man.
Yeah, great Pokemon. I know Kurt's very comfortable with it. I believe it was actually his kill leader last season. Getting access to Scald this generation was huge for Raikou. It went from, potentially being exponentially worse than it was last gen to almost debatedly being better this gen. Obviously gets access to Calm Mind. It can Volt Switch around on teams. It gets Aura Sphere for coverage and Shadow Ball and things like that, which is obviously very, very solid. Very annoying, strong, offensive, electric, and it really breaks through those bulky waters that Landers doesn't really appreciate too much, and gives him a great Volt turn core and Landers plus Raikou, which can obviously be very, very solid. So good stuff by Kurt.
Rounding out the third round, we have Seismitoad going to Kyle A. So we're starting to see a trend here, right? This is the third water type picked on this team. We have Seismitoad coming in. This is a solid water absorb Pokemon, having both the water and the ground typing. So we have waters with dual typings moving on here. It's a great stealth rocker. It's one of the better water grounds in my opinion, getting some solid coverage as well as power whip, being able to deal with other water types, which is really, really nice. Being able to pass off Scalds and just spread that around is really cool. Being able to set up stealth rock and be that bulky presence that Dracovish and Azumarill doesn't have to do. Like we said before, Azumarill could be run bulky, could be run defensively, but Seismitoad fills that role just a little bit better. So we have a little bit more defensive backbone on this team, and we've got the mono water slowly starting to build to see if he can continue this trend moving forward. And round 3, the recap. What stands out to you the most coming out of round 3?
Didn't get to say when JV picked, but I feel like he drafted his mascots like Fat Uncle. That's how I always look at Darmanitan. Just Victini's Fat Uncle that also clicked Strong Fire move, which is obviously very solid. I love the mascot pick in Salamence. I think that Pokemon's way more versatile than people give it credit to, so I'm hoping Kelly does me proud. I'm sure he will. Hydreigon in round 3, obviously amazing as well. One of the best dragons in the format, one of the best darks in the format. So really solid pick. I also really like my Latias pick. I think my Latias pick's kind of cool, but yeah, definitely a pretty solid round here by the coaches.
Very nice, guys. So again, we're going to snake back around. We're going to start off round number 4. Coming back, the first pick of round 4 is going to fall to Kyle A. And he's going to pick up, not that pick. We're going to start this over. Dragapult. Give us 1 second, guys, as we face this over. Give us your final thoughts one more time before we move forward to the next round.
Well, I'm going to ask the chat for their final thoughts. What do you guys think is the steal of round 3? Let me see it in the chat below. I want to see what you guys think is looking super crazy at this point. Again, I think the Scizor pick is actually really great by Shovel King too. I didn't really mention that at all. I think that pairs phenomenally with his first 2 picks, for sure. I was confused for a second. Don't you worry. We all were for a quick second.
We all
there.
were, guys. Like, Dragapult's going again. Why don't we pick Dragapult?
Yeah, Dragapult went round 1 and round 4. Hydra and Lottie, Hydra Arachi, definitely very solid picks. Yeah, I think the Arachi pick is very cool by Vivid in the sense that it doesn't, have to worry about those grounds as much, which is obviously dope. Urshifu Rapid is very good, especially with Zapdos. 100% true. 100% true. Yeah, Lottie pick was pretty clean too. I agree. Rachi, yep, for sure. Salamence, amazing Pokemon. People need to just, be a best steal of the round is Jirachi. Shovel King, you are fired. Does anybody want to be a coach in NCP now that Shovel King is kicked for making that awful pun? I feel like that kind of needs to happen at this point. Round 3 Rachi, round 3 Hydra. Yeah, I think that the general consensus is probably the Hydra, the Rachi, maybe a little bit of Latias. And I'm a little biased on the Salamence because Salamence is indeed the best dragon flying type in the draft league format. So I think that's an objective truth at this point. Me, I always loved Dragonite, but Mence, chef's kiss.
All right, guys, so we should be all set to go. The very first pick of round number 4 is going to fall to Kyle A, picking up Pelipper. So something's happening here. Give us your thoughts now of the team looking at the way that it's shaping out.
Well, Kyle has to, keep up with the mono water so far. Who knows what he'll do next round? But he ends up drafting Pelipper. Really makes those threats like Dracovish and Azumarill hit that much harder and be able to push past their checks. It's really hard to switch into a Dracovish in the rain, man. Most resists are getting 2-hit KO by Band or even just potentially O-Code. So that's obviously very, very scary to deal with. The Azumarill's Aqua Jets are going to push through a little bit more, that much harder. Or the Liquidation's just thrown off, don't have switch-ins. He can go offensive Toad much easier now with Swiss Swim as an option, which is definitely I can definitely see Kyle doing multiple times. It's actually very slept on in that role. So that's obviously very solid. Pelipper also gives him a little bit of momentum, which he does lack up to this point. And it gives him something that resists grass. It's not Dracovish, which is obviously nice as well. And he covers that electric weakness with Seismitoad pretty solid. So definitely, and that rock weakness with Seismitoad. So pretty interesting.
So we have Celebi going. We have another Pixie, but you have all those base 100s passing through. This is going to be a great momentum grabber for Mr. Kurt. It's also being able to be a good Pokemon to set up rocks. It's a great defensive pivot, being able to switch into ground type moves for Mr. Raikkou there. So this Pokemon is going to be one of those things that is going to be really, you don't really know what's going to come. Similar to the similar traits what Mew does and what Necrozma does, it has a lot of moves. So it's able to run a lot of offensive pivots and it can run a lot of offensive and defensive moves. So Celebi is going to be one of those Pokemon that you just never know what's going to come. Next Pokemon we have is Galvantula going to JV. Tell us a little bit more Galvantula, man.
Well, it looks like JV really wants that Darmanitan to get lots of kills, because Galv does pair very, very nicely with it in the sense that it can set up weathers for it to where you aren't forced into a Scarf every week. And I think if you can bring Life Orb Darm or Banded Darm, it becomes that much scarier. But I feel like if you don't have webs, it's a little bit harder to get it in freely with its pretty mediocre base 95 speed tier, so that obviously helps. It gives him another breaker to rip through waters, which is really, really nice for his Darm. For a good Volturn core with it. Definitely a little bit early, but it also gives him a solid speed tier in 108, giving him something faster than the base 100s, which he did not have up to this point. So definitely a pretty early Galv, in my opinion, but I see why he wanted it because it supports his real one offensive piece right now. I'd love to see him get some more breakers that really benefit from webs, because right now it's really only Darm, or either that or maybe support that defensive core of Clash Selly more, but definitely not the worst pick in the world. You can definitely break through waters now a little easier.
And now we have a Poison Dragon type Dragology coming into the Montreal Milotics. This is solid. Again, grounded poison type, being able to come in and soak up toxic spikes and being able to set up toxic spikes itself. It's a pretty good special defensive bulky Pokemon that he can use to pivot into. It can also be a really good offensive threat as well, getting access to a Stab Sludge Wave as well as Stab Draco Meteor. This he can be pretty tough to deal with, and it's a good Pokemon to be able to come in and switch to fighting types, which Excadrill doesn't really appreciate it right now, and his team doesn't really like those toxic spikes at the moment because Zapdos has that pressure to run Defog and Excadrill for a rapid spin, so being able to come in and get rid of toxic spikes is super nice for his team. So Dragology is going to be pretty solid pairing with what he's got going on right now. We have Kiram going to In Vivid Color. Tell us a little bit more about Kiram, man.
Crazy Pokemon. I love Kiram. I think it's incredibly slept on the draft scene. You saw pre-Crown Tundra, this Pokemon was incredibly highly valued as almost like a tier 1 type mod. It's definitely fallen off a little bit in a lot of people's minds, but I think this Pokemon's amazing, especially with getting the access to Dragon Dance and Icicle Sphere, which is a cool little buff, but mostly getting Freeze Dry, because it already beat Bulky Waters before with Sub and Pressure stalling them down. Now it bullies them, and it cares nothing about them. Sub Roost Freeze Dry Earth Power is so genuinely obnoxious with the access to Heavy Duty Boots this gen to deal with. It's also very strong on both sides. I believe it has 130 in each of its attack stats, so you can go mix, you can go physical special. Great Pokemon, great defensive utility, awesome mod.
Primarina, I love this Pokemon. You got the Fairy Water typing, being able to have access to Flip Turn is going to be a really solid defensive pairing to his entire team. Now he's got his Fairy on his squad and being able to come in and be that defensive pivot as well. It's offensive and it's a really good offensive Pokemon, has really strong stabs and it's able to hit like an absolute truck. So Primarina is going to be pretty solid on this team. I do love the Water typing that's going to be coming in and helping out with the squad. So shout out to Primarina. Sorry guys, the mic is totally cutting off. Go ahead and tell us about Swampert and about as we fix the mic issues.
No worries. Swampert, another very, very solid Pokemon. Phenomenal rocker. It gets access to Flip Turn from Momentum with this gen, which is awesome. Really, really loves the removal of Hidden Power, making this Pokemon genuinely annoying to deal with, especially if he does find options to pass Wish into it, which he does have access to with Togekiss, and I think a lot of people sleep on the fact that Togekiss can be that Wish passer and that Cleric and stuff like that, keeping Swampert healthy, being very solid in that right, which is obviously really nice. Flip turning on those grass types that are going to come in and try and pressure you out and get into your Victini is awesome, and again, an incredibly reliable stealth rocker, which Leo did lack up to this point. So I think Pert is a pretty solid pick for him right here, which is obviously awesome. Next
Darmanitan. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So Darmanitan went first overall last season. To much dismay as to other coaches, but hey, this Pokemon still does what it does best. It's a phenomenal pure ice type that gets access to Guerrilla Tactics. Previous draft leagues, this was thought to be too strong to be able to be allowed, and now it's slowly becoming a little bit more easy to handle, but still hits like an absolute truck. Guerrilla Tactics giving it that free choice band, being able to come in and with that base 140 attack is real obnoxious. Being able to come in with those ice punches and those icicle crashes, also getting U-turn to be able to pivot in on Pokemon that are going to switch in and check it. being able to wear down its checks like water types, and so being able to chip that down slowly and surely. Also with really solid coverage, it still retained Flare Blitz, so it's able to hit a lot of Pokemon neutrally that may be resistant to ice types, said steel types, which is really nice. So Darmanitan still going to do what it does best. I have talked to Shaco King and I have begged him to give it the glory that I could not give it last season, so hopefully Darmanitan is able to shine and rise to the occasion. So shout out to Darmanitan, shout out to Shaco King. And now we have Scolipede. So my thought process behind Scolipede, and guys, let me know if the mic starts to cut out in the chat, please. And then we have Scolipede coming in to give me a little bit of a speed, and it's another way for me to be able to check those grass types and be able to check those fairy types that want to come in on Garchomp. So having that bug and poison type stab with Mega Horn as well as poison jab is going to be super clutch to be able to deal with those bulky Pokemon, and being able to be a solid sweeper with access to Swords Dance and the bolt that it has, it's able to set that a little bit more freely, as well as be a good utility mon, being able to set up both spikes with toxic spikes and spikes, which is going to be really nice for this team. Having those weaknesses covered with the rest of the squad and having that offensive presence with Scolipede is going to be super nice. So I'm super excited to have that pressure taken off of Heatran with those grass types, so that way Heatran can do a little bit more than just be the defensive pivot. So real excited to have Scolipede on the squad. And then Umbreon comes with the Delta Glygars. We have round 4 Umbreon. Tell us about this one.
So, Mr. Howler ends up drafting Umbreon here, giving him a solid Bush Passer, giving him a solid Cleric. I don't know if it necessarily fits the build of this team phenomenally. It gives him good defensive synergy in this team, but it does kind of sap the momentum. I understand that Umbreon does get access to Baton Pass, but I feel like it's also very pressured to not run it in a lot of matchups, because you're either running Mono Foul Play as your attack or something like that, or you don't have Protect. So it can put you in a bit of an iffy spot. I'm not the biggest Umbreon fan myself, but I know a lot of people genuinely love this Pokemon. So, you know, knowing Howler, it'll probably end up working for him. And he did need to kind of start building a little bit of a defensive backbone, and this kind of looks like to be the start of that. And again, it still does have access to momentum, which is nice.
Definitely. Now we have Gzap falling into the 4th round to Under the Radar. Gzap is one of those Pokemon that was released a brand new mon with access to the dual stabs of flying and fighting. Basically Hawlucha 2.0, a little bit slower but hits a lot harder. Base 125 attack I think is what it has, with the base 100 speed. This thing is going to be super nice to be able to break down teams, having access to U-turn, so it's able to hit something really hard and then U-turn out, which is really nice. Getting access to close combat, and also I believe it's Thunderous Kick, that's the stab fighting type move that's able to reduce defense every single time. So it's able to snowball and stall break. So if there's that defensive Pokemon that wants to come in on Zapdos, it's able to hit it, drop its defense, and hit it multiple times to be able to break it just a little bit more. If it's able to live a hit and return, Gzap could be something super obnoxious for some teams to deal with if they're not prepared for it. And then we have the fighting type trend, Heracross. Tell us about Heracross with the pairing on this team.
Josh said, I know what Mew doesn't like. Mew doesn't like dark types. Well, I have the Pokemon that kills all of them. Heracross is definitely very solid, very scary, very potent wall breaker, again with the spikes that Ferrothorn lays, the Stealth Rock that Ferrothorn lays, and the spikes that Heracross can lay itself this gen. Incredibly scary mon. With a Flame Orb, this thing has, in my mind, genuinely no switch-ins between close combat, Mega Horn, knockoff, and facade. Even potentially like an Earthquake. It rips through just about everything, so it's very hard to deal with in that sense. It gets access to Swords Dance as well. It's a great Moxie sweeper with Scarf. Great pick by Josh.
Love to see it. Silvally. Silvally is going to the Vegas Golden Knights. We have the normal type with the ability to change its typing depending on the matchup at the cost of using its item. So it's able to stick as the normal type and use any other item like Choice Band, or it can use a Choice Scarf, or it can use an Assault Vest, etc. But if you give it the disc, it's able to change that typing. So if you need a dark typing, it's Silvally can step in. If you need a fairy type, Silvally can step in. So it's got that versatility in the draft that's definitely going to be coming in clutch. And it's also got really good moves to be able to support a team, like Parting Shot, being able to get that pivot momentum to get maybe a setup sweeper to come in, and also being able to have access to default to get rid of hazards. This Pokemon could be form fitted to whatever the matchup may be. Reggie Elecki isn't the bulkiest of Pokemon, so if he wants to get that in with a Parting Shot, that's actually super duper clutch. So Silvally is able to fill a lot of holes that may come into a matchup just by changing its typing, which is super nice. Now we have the second Nido taken off the board from Vepsis. Tell us about Nidoking.
I'm very upset because this is what I wanted, and it went literally the pick before me, and I was very upset with Vepsis. Great pick by him. It definitely synergizes phenomenally with Hydreigon. Those Pokemon break together absolutely amazing. It gives him his ground type. It gives him rocks, which he did not have up to this point. It gives him his grounded poison, his T-Spike. So, well, he has a grounded poison, but it ticks a lot of boxes for him. And he doesn't really care about grounds at this point, so having double poison isn't the biggest deal in the world, which is definitely solid for Vepsis. It just sucks because I really wanted this Pokemon with Urshifu, so Not super happy with Mr. Vepsis here, but I understand why he picked it, and it's definitely very solid for him.
And moving into your pick, we have a poison type. Tell us about it.
So this is the other option that I was thinking about, and I end up kind of, having my decision that kind of forced for me. Instead of going with that offensive, poison to break through those fairies, I went with a really fat one in Weezing, because it also gives me my fairy type. It gives me not only a potential ground of poison, but also another Pokemon off of the ground to where I never care about ground types, to be completely honest, in most matchups, unless your name's Zygarde. Zygarde's kind of scary right now. But Weezing's definitely very solid in that sense. It gives me T-Spikes, which I think is very solid with things like Urshifu and Latias and Corbin Knight and stuff like that, really chipping them down. Definitely very, very solid mon for this team.
And now we have Live in Call. Let me pull her in. Tell us about your 4th round pick, Terrakion.
All right, so as I mentioned, I'll be honest, when I was talking about my round 3 pick was Zarude with my friend Jake, who I was planning with. Basically, what we came to the conclusion of was Zarude was pretty irreplaceable. Terrakion was. So we pretty much banked on not getting Terrakion. That was the plan. We were like, there's a lot of other fighting options. I can get something like Cobalion if it came to it. But then Terrakion made it. And I was like, oh shit, Terrakion made it. Let me just get Terrakion. It hits really hard. No dark type is going to want to ever pressure this at all. You cannot name me one that does. And Justified's cool for switching on dark moves because it makes Terrakion only that much scarier. So, big scary mon. Gonna bully teams with it.
Love it.
Great
Love
pairing
it.
with the Dragapult.
We'll keep Liv in call for right now because we're going to finish off round number 4 and do the draft recap as she slowly starts to kick us off for round number 5. But Owen, tell us about your takeaways for round 4.
So we see the direction that Kyle wanted to go with his team, which is definitely interesting. I love the round 4 Kiram by Vivid. I think it's, again, an incredibly undervalued mon. I think it's a great pickup. And obviously synergizes pretty with his team. I love your Scolipede pickup. I kind of suggested that one to you when we were drafting. I think it's great pairing with Garchomp and what you have up to this point, which is obviously great. I also love the Nidoking pick, despite it being very
snipe from you.
Yeah.
It warms my heart to see the Guerrilla Tactics mascot being picked. It's super cool to see it in the hands of Shuckle King. I'll see if he can do
in
with
round
it.
4, keep in mind, not round 1, pick one.
Round 1, pick one. We love round 1 pick 'em, G-Darm. So also to me, Heracross sticks out. That, like you said, there's nothing that wants to switch in. It's going to be a good pairing with Mew. Those switch-ins to Mew, Heracross does not care about. It's like the bouncer in the club. That thing is going to be hitting like a truck. So there's a lot of really cool synergistic pieces that have been picked up this matchup. Galvantula, like you said, is a little bit of a question mark for me and being able to pick up this early. But hey, like we said, there's a specific we should say plan that coaches have going into a draft. He probably felt that he needed to get it now before someone else would have taken it. So to ones that may, he wants to build this team the way he wants to form fit. So let's see how that goes moving forward. And kicking us off for round number 5, the very first pick is going to fall to Miss Olivia Sama. Tell us about Slowking.
So Slowking was pretty cool here. Besides track and everything on my team has momentum right now. We have U-turn Pull, Full Switch and U-turn on Thundy, U-turn on Zarude. So having Slowking, of course, it's really easy to bring this in to take a hit and then teleport out after taking it. Which also, having a slow teleport is really, really nice to bring Terrakion in, which has no momentum. And all my mons around the same speed tier, realistically, if I'm outpacing something with them, I'm outpacing with Terrakion too. So having a slow teleport is really, really nice here. Also, it's a great switch into stuff like fighting types for Zarude and Terrakion. I'm patching it pretty well with Zarude for Ghost, so I just thought it fit really well here on the team. Kind of interesting to say the least in terms of me getting it because I've never really used Slowking well in draft, but I thought, it's Gen 8, it's changed a lot since the last time I used it in Gen 6, so maybe it'll do better.
We'll flip the story now. It's gonna be so much better now. Thanks, Liv. All right, guys, so the next we have here is Milotic. Tell us about Milotic fitting on this squad. Got a lot of fat going on.
So very, very bulky approach, and something that you're going to kind of see being a trend over this next round or two is people looking at Kyle's team and going, oh no, I need to get a water type. And that's what I did. I grabbed Milo because I really wanted to grab water type. I really wanted to grab a good ice resist for things like Lottie because my steel actually doesn't resist ice. So I thought that would be very, very important to have. I needed a good fire resist as well to help, patch up with that Corbin Knight. We do have Lottie. I just want to take a little bit of pressure off it. And Milotic not only gives me a really fat water with good, reliable recovery, it also gives me more momentum in flip turn, which is obviously very, very solid as well. So I'm really excited to use Milotic. I think it's a genuinely obnoxious Pokemon to try and break through. And I think with the team we have right now, it's going to be very difficult for teams to try and break through us.
Definitely. Mienshao coming up. We have another Regenerator Pokemon to follow up with 2 Regenerator Pokemon on this team. Mienshao is going to be a little bit different though. It's not that bulky Pokemon. Hits like a big freak train. It's got base 125 attack, I believe, and now access to close combat and not having to rely on the high jump kick and getting that mind game with your opponent to be able to click protect and then get that half damage onto you is really nice. Getting access to U-turn to pivot out on his checks and being able to run Life Orb reliably, coming in and hitting something stupid hard, taking that Life Orb recoil, switching out and basically regenerating that all back. Getting access to knockoff to be able to get that coverage for ghost types is super clutch for Mienshao. It's going to be that mon that Vepsis is going to need to help break teams, even though he's already got a really solid offensive core in Hydreigon and Nidoking. So this is going to be one of those other threats that teams are definitely going to have to deal with moving forward. And then we have a Grimmsnarl being taken by the Vegas Golden Nets. Tell us about Grimmsnarl, man.
Yeah, Grimmsnarl gives him, a cool screens option. He already had Elecki, so I don't know if he necessarily needed screens, but he gets another, probably more reliable screen setter in my mind. It gives him a dark type, which is obviously very, very nice. Gives him a fairy, so it ticks a couple boxes on the draft league checklist that you kind of need to have in your fairy and your dark. It also gets access to bulk up for setup options, plenty of priority between Prankster and moves like Sucker Punch. You can, Prankster T-Wave things, get some good speed control going for his Spectre if, he's worried about XYZ dark type thing. Same thing with Buzzwole with its very mediocre speed tier. He can slow things down for it. So good overall, just blanket support Pokemon, but can also be very potent offensively. So pretty solid pick.
This is the other trend that coaches like to follow. Whenever you see one dark type go, you're like, oh man, the dark types are going. I need to take one too. Crocodile goes with the Ultra Player and the Metagross, being able to be a solid pairing with this squad. Crocodile is a really good ground type, being able to be that Moxie sweeper for a team and being able to check those really, really defensive ghost types, or being able to switch in and destroy those electric types that this team is really not willing to deal with, and also deal with fire types that are going to be that real problem for Heracross and for Ferrothorn, because you can see that the weaknesses are slowly starting to be patched up here, and being able to run Stealth Rock on Crocodile is really nice to maybe take off that pressure for Ferrothorn to run a different set is super clutch. So Crocodile is going to be real nice on this squad because it's not pinpointed into a specific role. So I know that Josh is such a good player, he's going to be able to use Crocodile to its highest potential, so that's going to be super clutch to see. And now we have a Blastoise being taken by Under the Radar. Tell us about Blastoise.
Big choice. He needed him an ice resist, and he got it. So that's obviously very, very solid. I love Blastoise. It also got access to Flip Turn this gen, which is really nice momentum purposes. Obviously a very solid rapid spinner. Can be pretty potent sweeper with Shell Smash, though I think Shell Smash is a bit overused on, Blastoise in some Wi-Fi scenes, but it definitely has its place in its matchup, which is awesome. It just adds to the versatility of this Pokemon. Great blanket check to so many things. Very, very annoying, fat, bulky water. If you can find a way to keep it healthy, it can be really obnoxious for teams to deal with. And again, it gives them that really solid, ice resist, which he had 3 ice weaknesses up to this point. So I'm sure this is gonna, really help him out and kind of curbing that weakness.
Thicky cheese. Dracozolt goes to Platinum Howler and the Delta Gligar. So this is a cool Pokemon. This thing is similar to what Dracovish does. Some would even say it could be better than Dracovish just because of the versatility offensively that this Pokemon is able to provide for a team. Still has this access to its fossil move that Dracovish does. It's called Bolt Beak. What Bolt Beak does is whenever it goes first, it gets doubles in power. It also has access to Hustle. So similarities to Dracovish are definitely there. Hustle's kind of one of those things that if you roll the dice and it pays off for you, it pays off big. But if you roll the dice and it doesn't, then it could lose you games. So Dracozolt being able to also have access to Sand Rush, to not have to run a Choice Scarf to outspeed a team to get that boost for the Bolt Beak is going to be really nice. But it's not locked into a move. It's able to switch up moves and still be able to hit harder with Outrages, with Dragon Claws for stab, getting coverage options in Earthquake, and also Fire Fang and Fire Blast on the special side is able to run Thunderbolt and Draco Meteor. It could be run physical, it could be run special. It's a really, really potent wall breaker if it's able to get that speed. So it's going to be a solid coming up with Mr. Platinum Howler. So we'll see how he's able to run through that with next turn. And now we have Slurpuff with my team. So I wanted to actually pick up a fairy earlier, and I felt that Rotom Wash was going to get picked pretty early, depending on being able to fit on some of the teams that were about to pick before or after me in that same round. So I wanted to grab Rotom. I felt like I could wait on Slurpuff. Slurpuff is a solid Pokemon to be able to handle a little bit more of a speed control role. To be able to have access to Sticky Webs is super nice. Having Cotton Guard to be able to boost my defense, as well as Draining Kiss, can be a really solid defensive pivot. And also being a sweeper in its own right with Belly Drum. So those Belly Drum, Drain Punch, Play Rough Rough sets that were actually super potent and something that my opponents do have to plan for. So Slurpuff is able to be that cleric as well with access to aromatherapy. So this Pokemon is able to fill a lot of really crucial roles on my team, which just was lacking at that point. And then we have Tangrowth with Mr. Shuckleking. Tell us about Tangrowth, man.
Big Tangrowth, very bulky and annoying mon. Gives him a great way to, punish those and annoy those bulky waters that Darm really hates, and coming in for free on those U-turns that it baits in. Same thing with Scizor. Gives him a solid ground resist, which he did not have up to this point. He obviously had the Latios, which is immune, but it gives him a solid ground resist and an amazing fat annoying pivot. I love Tangrowth, definitely my favorite bulky grass personally in the format. Throws off big knockoffs and annoys teams and Giga Drains, and it can leech seed up. It can be a great AV user. Very solid Pokemon by Mr. Shuckleking, so definitely looks solid.
We do love growing up Tangela. Weavile, solid offensive threat to come in on the team. A man needed some speed. His fastest Pokemon he had on the squad at this point was Victini. There's a solid jump between 100 and Weavile speed tier, which is going to be something that he may want to patch up moving forward. But Weavile is a phenomenal offensive threat. I actually drafted this in the BBL before I handed the team off to my friend Kurt. This thing is a phenomenal Pokemon with access to really strong stabs and triple axle, as well as Icicle Crash and Knockoff, getting coverage for steel types because steel types are typically pretty heavy. Low kicks hit him like an absolute truck. So being able to be solid life orb abuser, choice band abuser, and even defensively, as some coaches have been able to show that could be a thing. So Weavile is one of those Pokemon that's able to come in and be a threat from turn one, and being able to come in with heavy duty boots and not get chipped down because of its ice typing. So Weavile is going to be one of those things that the coaches definitely have to plan for. And now we have Tornadus on the team for Mr. Mid Pokemaster. Tell us about Torn paired up with the team that he's got going on now.
Yeah, so the reason Mid went Torn here in my mind is probably to patch up his speed tiers. As annoying and good as his team was up to this point, it was very slow. His fastest Pokemon being Zygarde, so this gives him that 110 plus speed tier Pokemon. It gives him something to really punish and bully those defensive grass types that Zygarde and Primarina don't necessarily appreciate. Gives him more momentum and U-turn, obviously. With heavy duty boots plus nasty plot, this thing can be a potent sweeper on its own. It gets great coverage for potential flying resist and focus blast and heat wave, which is awesome. It gives him prankster defog, which is also obviously very solid as well. It can go with weird bulk up sets, and just really punish a lot of things that his team doesn't appreciate up to this point.
Moltres coming up with the squad. I'm actually gonna let you talk about Moltres. I know you love Moltres a lot. Tell us about Moltres on this team.
Yeah, Moltres is absolutely amazing. Really great Pokemon. Really appreciates the addition to heavy duty boots in the game. Really kind of curbing back its 4 times stealth rock weakness. This Pokemon has amazing defensive utility. Flame Body as an ability is genuinely obnoxious. Sub-roost pressure sets are also very obnoxious. People really sleep on that aspect of Moltres. Mystical Fight or lower things special attack, allowing it to 1v1 a lot of water types, which is really funny if they're not carrying some way to status it and toxic it. And also having access to Hurricane to throw off, Scorching Sands to hit those potential rock types that switch in on its stabs is great. Gets access to U-turn, gives him a good defogger as well. Really solid Pokemon. Absolutely loved Moltres last season.
And then we have Sylveon, like we talked about before. There's a premier steel types in draft league format. This will be probably in that conversation as one of the best. Clefable's gone, Togekiss is gone, and now goes Sylveon. Sylveon is a phenomenal defensive Pokemon, being able to switch in on a lot of really hard hits and take it really well and get that reliable recovery with leftovers, as well as Wish passing. Wish is really nice on this Pokemon. Having a good cleric on the team is really nice. Sylveon gets a good momentum grabbing with Baton Pass. Like we said before, we can't pass stats, so we can't go for Calm Minds and pass that off, but it can be used for Dry Pass to be able to get the momentum to bring in his Urshifu Single Strike, to bring in his Excadrill. So it's going to be still a super solid pairing with this entire team, being able to get his offensive threats in. So Sylveon is a good defensive backbone to have on this team for sure. And then we have the evolution trend going on, so the next one we come up is Vaporeon. Tell us about Vaporeon here.
Vaporeon gives GV a fat water, which is really nice for his team. He doesn't really have one up to this point. Pairs pretty solidly with Celesteela. They do share the electro weakness, but I'm sure that JP can patch that later on. But Vaporeon is going to resist those strong fire type attacks coming off at Celesteela, and Celesteela is going to resist those annoying grass type moves coming out at Vaporeon. Vaporeon can also keep Sally healthy, which is obviously awesome. It gives him another Wish Passer on top of Fable, which doesn't always want to run it every time he brings it, and also gives him a Cleric, which again Fable doesn't always want to run. So very solid.
Another water type being picked here. We have Suicune. I know that Kurt was really excited to have this Pokemon, this Mon. If you're not ready for it, can literally just 6-0 you because it's just so fat. Being able to run those Crocoons and those Vincoon sets, running Calm Minds and substitutes and burning your team and being able to rest and sleep talk. This thing, if you don't have a Taunter, if you don't have a Stall Breaker, Suicune can really run through your entire team. It also can be run offensively, funny enough. It's got some good support sets with Tailwind. I know that from my VGC days, so Suicune could be that little support for the rest of the team. Maybe if he needs a little bit more oomph to bring Landorus in and get that extra speed, he can go for a Tailwind and then get it out, get Landorus that speed boost, as well as Raikkou if you need a little extra oomph. So Suicune's going to be one of those defensive Pokemon that just does what it does best, and if you're not prepared for it, it's literally going to take over the entire game. And then we have another water type. Tell us about Araquanid on this mono water team that apparently is being formed by Kylie.
Yeah, so as you saw, a lot of people are starting to take their waters this round prior, and we saw 2 waters right back to back in the wake of Kyle's pick here. He ended up picking up Araquanid next, giving him Sticky Web for his Dracovish, which is obviously very scary to deal with. Not having to run Scarf to outspeed a lot of things if he is able to get up webs and you know, make things slower than his Dracovish, other than making his Dracovish faster, which is obviously, you know, very solid. This Pokemon hits really hard with Water Bubble. In the rain, it's going to do an absolute metric ton. It's a bug type that also kind of resists fire because of Water Bubble. It can't be burned, so a very potent wall breaker in that sense, and great in getting up those webs.
Yeah, it's gonna webs with Dracovish in the rain. That's scary. And with the choice band on it, now you don't want to deal with that right now. So looking back at round number 5, you're starting to see some defensive pieces coming onto teams, maybe some speed tiers that are going to be filled out because you're starting to realize that, hey, maybe I don't need to hit base 100 and above. So a lot of those missing pieces are slowly starting to come in a wake. Maybe some offensive threats are going to come in the future, maybe some more defensive pieces, but to this round looks like the speed tiers were a biggest thing. What's your biggest takeaway coming out of round 5?
Well, yeah, like you said, a lot of teams are trying to patch up their speed tiers a little bit. A lot of teams were grabbing their water types, like I just mentioned. Liv did, I did, Kelly did, JV, Kurt, and then Kyle obviously with his mono water team up to this point, so that's something else to obviously, you know, kind of keep in mind in the back. The Dracozolt pick was definitely cool to see it go in the draft because it's something that typically doesn't get drafted. I like to see how Howler supports it though, because it kind of seems like it was just plopped on the team at this point, so I'd love to hear his rationale on that. I do obviously want to mention, for those of you guys who are still on chat, obviously exclamation point, you know, coach team name. If you do want to go check out and support your favorite coach, if you like their team so far and you're like, wow, I really want to see them play and use this every week, definitely go check them out and, you know, drop their command so everybody else can too, and go show all the coaches some support and love. But yeah.
Yes, guys. So, and after this round, this is round number 5. Once we complete round number 6, we're going to be taking a little short intermission, probably around 5 minutes or so, just so Owen and I can recharge the batteries, make sure that everything's working okay, because as we looked from before, there's some technical difficulties, so hopefully I can iron those out. Thank you guys so much for your patience. We're going to take a little break after round number 6, so we're just going to hop right on into it. Sneaking back, we have the very first pick in round 6 is going to fall to Kyle, and he's going to pick up Tentacruel. So we have another water type. We have confirmation. We have a mono water team, guys. Someone called Gym Leader Geo. Kyle's here. So a mono water type for this team is gonna be really nice. Now we have our grounded poison type. We have a rapid spinner to be able to reliably get rid of hazards, being able to soak up toxic spikes as well. This Pokemon is gonna give him a little bit of a higher speed tier because this is officially his fastest Pokemon on his team, which is something that he's definitely gonna have to think about moving forward. Maybe a swift swim sweeper with the rain, you never know. But Tentacruel is gonna be able to be a good defensive check to a lot of Pokemon, being able to switch in on fairy types that maybe Dracovish doesn't want to deal with, and being able to get rid of hazards on his side and not his opponent's side, because he does have access to sticky webs now, so that's pretty solid to not have to run defog on Pelipper and being able to have that versatility with his team. So Tentacruel is going to fill up a lot of roles and being able to still be an offensive threat within the rain because he gets those boosted water type moves in the rain, which is really nice. Aromatisse, fairy type, onto the Jess Kurt and the Walt Disney Landers. What do you think about this pick?
Great pickup by Kurt. Not only does it give him great Wish Pass, a great cleric for his team, which is obviously really appreciated with things like Aegis Slash, Landorus, Raikkou, Suicune. They really do appreciate that fat Wish Pass, that way to heal ball off toxics and burns and things like that. But it also gives him Trick Room, and Trick Room Aromatisse plus Aegis Slash, in my mind, is absolutely phenomenal. So it gives him a great defensive synergy for this team. While Aromatisse on its own might not be the best fairy type in the world, it offers to Kurt's team what he really needs out of his fairy type. So I think this was definitely a great pickup by Mr. Kurt.
Serena. I know that JV loves himself some Serena. Serena's a phenomenal grass type Pokemon and offers a lot of utility to a team. Having access to U-turn for momentum, knockoff to get rid of items, and being able to rapid spin off hazards is really, really nice. I personally like to have grass types that's able to switch into like Skull to take a burn. This thing is very physically offensive with access to high jump kick, access to power whip. It could be a really good wall breaker if it's tailor made that way in the matchup. But hey, the utility is sometimes too much to pass up. I think it also gets aromatherapy, so it could be a solid cleric for the team. Serena fills a lot of roles that's able to help any team, so you could definitely see why Serena was picked up on the squad, and it's going to be cool to see how he form fits it on each matchup. And now Tangrowth is gone. Tangela goes too. Tell us about Boots.
Now, this is a very early Boots. Matt, you could tell he's had a specific idea of what he wanted his team to be, because he drafted round 4 Dragalge, and then to Sylveon, which went pretty late in all honesty, and then round 6 Tangela. But phenomenal ground resist, which he did not have up to this point. His team was pretty darn ground weak outside of Zapdos. It gives him a great edge quake pivot because he lost to the combination of those two moves without Tangela. Tangela's the one I had on my last season's team of the NCP. Sorry, forgot what league I was in. And it's great because of the sense that if Matt does end up going the sand route, which he may because he has an Excadrill, it is a grass type that does not rely on synthesis for recovery. It can regen, pivot out, it can knock things off, be a genuine nuisance, and is pretty darn bulky.
It's looking like Sandaconda is going to go to Invivid Color in the South Texas Sableye. A pretty interesting ground type. I've used Sandaconda in the past ahead of my BBR season number 2. It's a cool Pokemon. It's a pure ground type, so this thing's going to obviously have that role filled out. It's able to stealth rock stuff. It's got cool abilities. It's able to set up sand with Sand Spit, but it's a little bit different than the way Hippowdon and Gigalith run it. You have to touch it. You have to do damage to it, either physically or special. If you hit it with any kind of move at all, it's Sand Spit activates. So it's not a reliable way to set up sand, but you can still do it nonetheless. So maybe that's a route that he wants to take moving forward. It's a good defensive piece. It's a solid Pokemon that come in and take hits. It fills that really well, as well as be a status absorber with Shed Skin. It's not fully reliable to be able to get it off every single time, but there's a chance to. So if it gets burnt, if it gets poisoned, there's a chance to get that shed off. So it's got a lot of really cool niches that it can run. So it's going to be fun to see what Vivid does with it moving forward. Now we have Roserade. Roserade is such a good Pokemon. Tell us about Roserade here.
So, great way of punishing those fat grasses that, again, Zygarde does not appreciate. So, Mid's formulating a team around Zygarde that, really, supports it well. It also is a great bulky water source. Probably one of the best in the game. It's obviously a great status absorber and natural cure. It did lose out on hidden power, making it not as potent offensively as it was in previous generations, but it also lays up spikes, which Mid did not have up to this point, which is actually amazing for his team right now, and also gives him T-spikes and his grounded poison. So while this Pokemon doesn't resist ground, which is a bit unfortunate with grass type, he does have Pokemon like Rotom to be immune to it, and he doesn't have to worry about 1,000 arrows coming out because he's got it. So that's obviously very solid. If he can pick up, maybe just another ground resist later on in the draft, he'll be in a really, really good spot. So good stuff by Mid.
Most definitely. Porygon 2. Porygon 2 is a really, really thick and annoying Pokemon that's able to just soak up hits, make some Pokemon even invalid just from how much bolt that this thing has. So being able to have access to Eviolite, being able to boost both of his defenses and by 1.5 times. It can be tailor-made to any matchup to be able to soak up the hits that it wants and then pivot out. Also be a solid Trick Room option. As you can see, he does have Melmetal on this team, so that can maybe be something that he wants to do. It does take an extra turn to set that up. He's going to have to come in, set up Trick Room, teleport out, and that's one of his turns already eaten. So when Melmetal comes in, he's going to have only 3. Which is fine. It's still able to do a lot of work, but Porygon 2 giving a lot of different options for my man's team, and having Weavile on there to be able to get rid of any other Pokemon that may want to check Weavile. So it's gonna be super nice to be able to switch on those ghost type Pokemon. So shout out to 6-foot hacks on Porygon there. Now we have Jolteon. Jolteon going pretty early. What do you think about Jolteon on this pick?
This is the patented Shuckle King round 6 Mon going way too early pick. Last season it was Clefairy. This season is Jolteon. Now Jolteon gives him a very good speed tier, gives him something to break through fat waters, gives him solid momentum and Volt Switch. Personally, I think this Mon is pretty dog water in Gen 8 draft, but it definitely fits the bill of what he's trying to get, and you can tell round 6 is the Shuckle King value round. And this is what he deemed as, maybe undervalued because, again, I help with the tiers, and I think this Pokemon is awful. But it does give him that way of breaking through waters. It gives him a good speed tier, and it gives him good Volt Switch momentum.
We love to see it. As you guys know, Owen and Shuckle King have their relationship, so he's not backing on them. They're having a good time. So Obstagoon. This Pokemon from the very start of the draft was a Pokemon that I knew I wanted on this team, and I knew that I had to take it now because I can see that under the radar Kelly, he loves this Pokemon as well, and it could fit on his team. So I wanted to grab it before he did, and ensure that I was able to grab this Pokemon. This Pokemon is going to be so much fun to use, being a good status absorber with access to the ability Guts, boosting his attack, and also having Stab besides that when it is status, it also doubles in power. So this thing is going to be extremely tough to deal with, and giving that access to be able to hit steel types with close combat is super nice. Being able to pivot around with parting shot is going to be super nice on Pokemon that may want to try and check Obstagoon, namely like fairy types. I can still hit it hard with facades, but being able to pivot out and drop its attack and bring in another sweeper like Garchomp instead of Swords Dance, this thing is going to be super nice. I wouldn't be surprised it ends up being my kill leader. I love the fact that Obstagoon is on this team, and I'm so excited that it's going to put in this much work. And now we have Hippowdon. There it is, paired up with Dracozolt. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, so he ended up getting the sand option with a Zolt. He also did get a very, very, very bulky, annoying Pokemon. Kind of, again, patching out that defensive aspect of his team. Umbreon plus Hippowdon is going to be pretty darn annoying for a lot of teams to potentially try and break through, get the reliable recovery, and slack off. It gives him Stealth Rocks, which he did not have up to this point. And it's very important to have rocks. So good stuff by Mr. Howler there. Hippo, definitely a pretty expensive sand setter, but he got a pretty budget sand sweeper, so I think that's fine. And you can tell his team isn't 100% solely devised around sand. It's a sand aspect, which I always like when people do, and they don't go too hard on the weather aspect, and they kind of, make sure they formulate a good team around it. So I'm here for Hippo. I'm glad he ended up grabbing it with Dracozolt here.
Adding an element versus an overall backbone. Mesprit's going to under the radar in the Maryland Torterrapins. Mesprit is one of the cool late trio that's able to be a little bit more versatile. We have Uxie that's super defensive, and then we have Azelf that's super offensive. Mesprit kind of sits a little bit in the middle, being able to be the good utility with Stealth Rock, as well as being able to be a Claire for your team. Having U-turn to be able to pivot in and out, soak up hits. It's got a good stat distribution. It's able to fill a lot of roles that isn't going to be an obvious role like the other late trio has. So Mesprit's a little bit more versatile in my opinion, and being able to fit on a team like this is really nice. Having access to Levitate, which is another ground immunity, which is kind of tough for this team at this moment. Zapdos is able to switch in but doesn't really want to, wants to be more of an offensive presence, as well as Salamence, so he wants to have another defensive option to be able to switch in on those ground types. So Mesprit definitely fits the bill there. And we have Vanillix that the Pokemon MD stand. Tell us about Vanillix on this team.
Yeah, so Vanillix gives Mr. Josh that aspect of Aurora Veil, which is actually really, really scary with setup options like Mew and Thundurus, and even Heracross to an extent, or even Bulk Up Crocodile with, some cheese hits. And I know Josh is not afraid to bring some weird setup shenanigans with like Power Trip, so that's obviously very solid. It gives him a Pokemon that just kind of clicks Blizzard and profits, again, with Hail, in conjunction with Hail Chip. Blizzard's incredibly strong, and being 100% accurate can kind of push through a lot of its own checks, and he has plenty of Pokemon to break through Ice Resist. So this is actually a pretty solid low tier pick by Josh in the sense that it really does kind of punch through a lot of things and gives him Veil. So good stuff.
And then we have Goodra. We have a fat dragon type, one of the pseudo legendaries. Goodra is going to be able to fit a really, really thick role to this team. So as you can see, there's a lot of offensive pieces that are relatively frail. Buzzwole is really, real thick on the defensive side. So now we have the pairing with Goodra is really nice to be able to switch in on those checks that want to come in on Buzzwole. They're both weak to fairy, but I think that he'll be okay. We'll see how he patches it up moving forward. But also being able to have prankster screens with Grimmsnarl paired up with Goodra, this thing is going to be almost impossible to kill. Being able to have the Cleric as well, so Goodra is going to be able to come in and take those grass type moves that his team may not want to take. So Goodra is going to be that Pokemon that's going to be offensive, it could be defensive, it's going to be one of those Pokemon that's going to be really, really tough to break. So we'll see how he's able to use it this season. And then we have the Stan, we have Reggie Steel on Vepsis again. Tell us about this Pokemon.
Yeah, so Vepsis' team, he ended up drafting Registeel again, very, very solid bulky steel. It gives him another rocker to take pressure off of Nidoking to run it, which I think is very important. Nidoking often doesn't want to run Stealth Rock, so Registeel being able to do so, it gives him his steel type, which is obviously awesome, giving him yet another fairy resist. So Hydreigon, it just doesn't really care about them, to be completely honest, which is obviously very, very solid for Vepsis' team. Again, reliable rocker, Fatmon. If you can find a way to pass some wishes into it, it's going to be chilling, and obviously there's that option of Curse or Iron Defense plus Body Press.
Now we have Mamoswine taken by the champ. Tell us about Mamo.
Yeah, so again, I didn't get Nidoking, so I needed another ground type. I needed something strong. I needed a wall breaker to pair with Urshifu in the sense that I don't really have a lot of offense up to this point, and I'm not very comfortable with that. So I ended up grabbing Big Mamoswine. This is a Pokemon I've been wanting to use in Galar decks for a while. This Pokemon just clicks buttons. Its stabs are absolutely impossible to switch into by most Pokemon in most instances. It gives me Stealth Rocks as well, which I don't have up to this point, and that's not good. Like I said, kind of need rocks. So it gives me a good rocker, force a lot of switch-ins. It gives me a good priority in Ice Shard, just a very strong Pokemon overall.
And now we have Liv back in call. Tell us about Clefairy.
Hi. So I was very, very inspired by my longtime idol, big fan of the channel, Shakaku King. He got crowned. I just had to copy him because I'm such a copycat, and I don't draft anything new. But regardless, though, Clefairy was kind of cool. I saw it in 2 points, which, to be fair, I'll partially take credit as one of the people who helped here, along with Owen and Shuckle. Might have been an oversight, I think, in hindsight, but it was still a cool pick in 2 points. Realistically, I needed a fairy here. Cool teleport momentum with Slowking, so it just sort of fit the team really well. Nice fighting resist too, and nice dark resist as well.
Love to see it. Love to see it, guys.
Sure.
So that shows round 3. Look at that. So let me pull this up for you guys real quick. But we're gonna do a round recap for round number 6. I'm gonna pull that up for you guys right now. But tell us about what your thoughts are in the chat. What's your favorite Pokemon that's been drafted thus far? And then and tell us a little bit more about your recap for round 6.
Yeah, so as for big Pokemon drafted, big round 6 Clefairy, for sure one of the steals of the draft. Good stuff by Liv there. As for other Pokemon, I do love Mesprit. I think it's a great Pokemon. I know it's a Pokemon that Kelly has used really well in the past. It gives him another solid rocker, which I think was very important for his team as well, which he didn't have. Obviously, you have, a lot more of the mid to low tier mons coming out. You have things like Obstagoon, though, which is obviously a very potent wall breaker. I'm really excited for you to be able to use that Pokemon. It's definitely a U-type mon. And another option I noticed you didn't really mention up to this point, there's a couple of different options. It gets extra Reckless, so you can throw off Reckless double edges in some specific matches. It gets Defiant, so if you're hazard stacking and you're like, nope, you're not getting rid of my hazards without paying for it, you can do that. It gets Switcheroo to Switcheroo that Flame Orb onto, some physical threats, which can obviously be really solid. And it gets access to Bulk Up, and that thing's bulk is actually pretty darn impressive when you look at it. So Obstagoon is definitely a really fun Pokemon.
Definitely, guys. What's your favorite Pokemon that's been drafted so far? Let us know in the chat. We're gonna go ahead and take a little 5-minute break. We will be back shortly, and with the moving forward for round number 7. So we will be back shortly, guys.
I just need this to be real. I don't need no fairy
What's up, guys? I am back. Owen is still on his break. We're giving him a little bit more time. When I come in and say hi to you guys, there's still a whole bunch of people in the chat. So, guys, before Owen gets back, he's still got a little bit of time, like I said before. Let me know what your guys' favorite pick was in round 6. Let me know what you think came early. Or let me know what you think is a solid piece to add to that team. And hopefully, moving forward, all of the, technical difficulties have been taken care of. We know we love technical difficulties. It's always a good time, makes for some solid improv. So now that we got that all squared away, it's going to be a good time moving forward. We've got round 6, and we've got all that round 6 done. We got round 7 moving forward, so it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun time. I'm gonna unmute myself from the chat here real quick, so that way you guys can hear Owen again, and he should be back in.
There we go.
Welcome back.
Dear,
I just want to mention in chat. We can't share the doc, unfortunately, just because it does have the results for games that have already been played. Because we do play the games week in advance, so we can't really share that. I'm sure that we can do some kind of tier list, doc where we just throw the tiers on it and
it'll be thrown in the NCP server after the stream.
Perfect. You heard it from Liv.
We'll do that. So make sure you guys hop on into the NCP server so you can participate with all the coaches that are going to be in this season, as well have access to the doc so you guys can check that out and follow along as we go. So, Owen, any final thoughts on round 6 before we move into round 7? We're going to keep Liv in call because she's going to kick us off in round 7.
Nope, I think we covered it all right before the break. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Here we go. So we have round 7 kicking us off. We have Liv picking up Metagross. Tell us about Metagross, girl.
All right, so with Clefairy, while it is, in my opinion, great for 2 points, it was not exactly the best fairy. So I did want a really good track images. Metagross, of course, fills that role. It's a really good bulky option as well in tandem with things like Slowking, Zarude. And I guess speaking of Slowking, while normally dual Psychic isn't something you're going to normally seek after, it is still very good here because Slowking and Meta just do very different things. Meta, of course, being able to kill stuff like Fighting types or Pull, and just in a more offensive manner, whereas Slowking is more meant to take hits from stuff like, like fire types, I guess, but that's not the Psychic typing's fault, but also fighting types. Whereas, again, Metagross isn't even a resist to fighting. So they help a lot. Clefairy and Metagross, of course, also give me more rockers because Dragon was the only one beforehand. Yeah, I just like the team a lot. Really good team so far, I like.
Love it. Thanks, Liv.
No problem.
Perfect. Next pick we have moving forward is the Golden Boy. For those of you we didn't mention this before. I feel like we have to. The reason why his slides are gold is because he's the champ. So we have the Golden Boy coming up with Licky Tongue. Tell us about Licky Tongue.
That's the only perk. So yeah, Licky, more fat. I was just talking about how my team's a little too fat and I needed some offense. So I drafted Licky. I wanted a strong, bulky, normal because my Ghost Resist at this point is Urshifu, which is something I don't want to switch in on Shadow Blast, which I don't want getting stray Wisp or something like that. So Licky gives me a really, really solid Ghost immunity to switch in and pivot in on those Ghost checks. It also gives me great Wish support and a great Cleric for this team. What's probably going to be status bait for sure. I'm going to see lots of Toxics and Will-O-Wisp and stuff like that thrown out my way. So giving me another Cleric outside of Weezing is obviously very solid. I don't need to Healing Wish stuff up with Latias anymore. And Licky's incredibly versatile in the sense that, yeah, I can be that fast Wish, Protect, Heal Bell, Body Slam type set, but I can also roll out with Curse or Swords Dance because a lot of teams just aren't going to be able to break Licky as is. So that slow setup option is also very solid. Love me some Licky.
And now speaking of the pink chub, we have Slowbro being picked up with Vepsis, one of the Vepsis stands. We have another regenerator Pokemon being able to add to his fleet of Pokemon that just will not die. Slowbro is a phenomenal pivot to be able to come in and take those fighting type hits, as well as any fire type hits, etc. with that awesome typing of water and psychic, being able to absorb hits and then teleport out slowly. Negative priority to be able to get in any of his wall breakers, any of his sweepers, so that's going to be super solid for Vepsis to do so. It's able to check the Pokemon that want to come in and wall break for Registeel. So Slowbro is a solid defensive pairing with what he's got going on right now, and we all know that Vepsis can use Slowbro pretty well. So once again on the team, it's going to be a big force to be reckoned with. Now we have Lantern going to the Vegas Golden D Knights. Tell us about Lantern.
Great Pokemon. I used it in BBR most recently, in this most recent season. Great mon. The water plus electric typing is obviously phenomenal. Really aiding in the sense that Volt switches are incredibly free because your ground type typically isn't going to want to switch in on a stray Scald, unfortunately, which is also incredibly spammable. So Lantern is great in that sense. Very fat SPDF wise, great AV user, or HP wise, so great AV user. Gets access to Heal Bell as well, so it's another Cleric for his team. Actually, I think it's his only Cleric up to this point, which is obviously very solid. If he can find a way to pass wishes and do it, keep it healthy, it's very solid in that sense. And it gives him something from Fat Waters, which he did not have up to this point, minus the potential Savali type. So very solid for Mr. Davion right here. Good pick by him.
Oh yeah, now we have another water type being taken, and this is type null on the bottom, which is funny. This is supposed to be Toxapex, but it says type null. So Toxapex, so shout out to Josh. So we have Toxapex being pulled into this team. This is a solid poison and water type. Being able to have the access to Regenerator, super solid for this team. Being able to be a good fighting type switch in, and this thing's here to just sit and not die. So Toxapex is going to be that Pokemon that's going to be that good defensive pivot for his team. A little bit of a psychic weakness coming on. Crocodile is able to take that on a little bit better, and then there's Ferrothorn as well, but Toxapex is able to come in and sit on a lot of teams. Some could say it's a little bit passive, but it could also be a little bit obnoxious for teams to deal with. So it's a really solid bulky water type to be able to handle in for Josh here. And then we have Incineroar going to Kelly under the radar. Tell us about Incineroar.
It fits phenomenally with this logo in the background.
Yeah.
Looks great there. Incineroar gives him another ice resist, which I think, as I mentioned before when he drafted Blastoise, his team was very ice weak up to that point and had a lot of pressure on Blastoise to do so. So now he has Incineroar to do so. It also gives him a dark type, which he did need up to this point, which is great for him. Gives him more momentum options in U-turn and parting shot and things like that, which obviously really, really solid. And go with cool cheesy setup options with some weird bulk up power trip sets, getting flame charge. It gets access to sword dance as well, which I think is very slept on an Incin. In instance where you're playing a fatter team. Actually SD Incin can be great. Intimidate pivot gets access to boots. Overall really, really solid mon, and really pairs well with some of its more offensive.
Now we got some speed being taken by Platinum Howler and the Delta Glygars. We have Crobat. I believe that Crobat is his fastest Pokemon. Yes, it is fastest Pokemon team. So now so now he has base 130. So he does jump from Keldeo to Crobat. We have Dracozolt being able to pair up in the sand. That's also an option that he can run for speed. But Crobat is going to be a phenomenal Pokemon to check offensive fighting type Pokemon, coming in and defogging hazards away for him. It can also be a really offensive potent threat with Nasty Bat, which is a good set. So it's able to run Nasty Plot with Giga Drain and Sledge Bomb and Air Slash, etc. I think now we got Hurricane this generation. So there's definitely another element that could be added to Crobat's offensive utility belt. So Crobat's going to be a good piece for this team moving forward. You got that speed tier patched up a little bit. And now we have Gourgeist going to my team. So I was kind of torn on this pick. I like my grass types to be able to switch on Scalds to be able to take those burns a little bit better. But with this team, now that I have now I have a Guts User and Obstagoon, it's going to be really nice to be able to not have to worry about that as much. And we do have some Cleric support with Slurpuff, so I didn't think it's much of a big deal. But having that element as a grass type to be able to run Will-O-Wisp is really, really nice, as well as a really cool niche that has access to one of the best abilities, in my opinion, for Draft League. It has Frisk, so that way I can come in and check whatever item my opponent is running, so I can tell a little bit more about the set, as well as pair it up with Poltergeist. So Poltergeist is basically failing if it doesn't have an item. So if I just see that it has an item, I can run free Poltergeist, which is nice. And I also have access to every one of the pumpkins, the small to the jumbo. Just changing up the speed stat. The small is a little bit faster, and then the jumbo is a little bit slower, but it's a little bit bulkier on the HP stat. So depending on the matchup, I could bring a different Gourgeist. So it's pretty solid to build a pair depending on the matchup. So really happy to have Gourgeist in the team. Now we have the second dark and fighting type, Pangoro, being taken. Tell us about Pangoro for Shuckle King.
Very, very potent, strong wall breaker. It is, as Darmanitan's Victini's fat uncle, Pangoro is Urshifu's fat uncle. Very, very solid mon, though. Gets access to momentum and parting shot, which can obviously be very, very annoying. And he has a lot of things that break down the fat fairies that, Pangoro doesn't appreciate, especially being Scizor. So nice little momentum core there. And again, in matchups where he does play slower, fatter builds, this Pokemon prays and massacres those type mons. So it also gives him a dark type, which is obviously very, very important. Gives him that fighting type to really break through fat steals as well for things like Latios. So good mon.
Great mon. And now we have the mascot pick. I think the second mascot pick being picked in this draft. We have Dredagon to the Durham Dredagon. So it's a pretty solid dragon type Pokemon that feels some good utility to the team, getting access to Stealth Rock as well as the ability Rough Skin, being able to get paired up with Rocky Helmet. It's going to be one of those things, if your opponent has a lot of physical offensive threats that does make contact, it's forced to take a lot of chip every single time it wants to go for his moves. It's also able to punish U-turners. That's really nice for it. It's also got some solid offensive presence to it with access to Sheer Force, I believe is what it is. So Sheer Force is giving access to boosted elemental punches, and it's got great stab options and Outrage and Dragon Claw. This thing is going to be pretty solid defensively and offensively, and it's able to form fit itself to each and every matchup. So solid pickup by the Durham Dredagons. Now we have Alolan Persian. Tell us about your thoughts on Alolan Persian as the dark type.
Well, Alolan Persian kind of has its upsides and its downsides. And I knocked out my mic, so I hope you guys heard me say that. It has its upsides and its downsides in the sense that it's very solid for mid-seam in the sense that he has a lot of fat setup in Pokemon. Well, not a lot, just 2 great fat setup options in Zygarde and Necro. It does have trouble consistently checking those fat, bulky psychics that are setting up because it's mediocre stat and it not being very offensively potent. But it can always taunt them. It can always, do things like that in order to, subsequently deal with them. So as long as mid plays smart, he should be fine against them. So very solid for his fat setup, and it gives him a good speed tier as well.
Yeah, solid speed set there. Now we have another Dark type, again going back to back. I know that Vivid is in the chat, so shout out to Vivid. We have G Moltres being pulled up, so we have the Dark and Flying typing going on. I believe this is the second Galarian bird that has been taken with access to Berserk, and without access to Roost. It's not necessarily going to be the greatest defensive pivot, but it's a really good offensive mon to come in and get that Berserk boost when it goes below half, to get that special attack raise and hit really, really strong Dark pulses and Fiery Wraths, which is the signature move that this thing gets, as well as Hurricane. So this thing is going to be really good to wall break. It's going to be a good Pokemon to be able to come in and just rip teams apart. So Moltres is going to be one of those Pokemon that we're going to have to wait and see how it goes. I know that Platinum Howler had it in the BBR season 3 and he did really well with this. So being able to rip teams apart with those dual stabs is going to be really, really scary because it's a good offensive pairing with those two. And now we have Alakazam. Speaking of offense, tell us about the fast, hard hitting potential with Alakazam.
Big Zammer. This Pokemon's awesome, man. I used this in a league before. It's very hard to fit on a team and justify drafting, especially because of how good a fat psychic can be in a draft setting. But Matt has great fighting just up to this point, so he didn't really have the need for that on this team. This Pokemon gives him a great speed tier, gives him a great setup option and Nasty Plot, and it gives him a strong wall breaker. And having also, keep in mind that guaranteed sash and that guaranteed that guaranteed revenge killer to, those scary setup threats can obviously be very, very clutch in a lot of matchups. With having access to Magic Guard, you don't just have to run Life Orb. You can run Sash and Counter and a bunch of different options. I think Zam is really solid if it fits on the team, and you can justify drafting it. And I think that Matt definitely picked up Zam at a pretty opportune time. Great pick by him.
Definitely. So Frostlass, pretty solid Pokemon. So this Pokemon is one of the favorites of Ultra Player, and he brought up a good points to us that Frostlass did get a lot of really good offensive options to be able to do in Gen 8, and giving access to Poltergeist as well as Ice Shard for priority, and going on the special side with Shadow Ball as well as Ice Beam. This thing could be form fitted offensively on the matchup, and it's a solid speed star base 110. Frostlass can also run the original Frostlass other gen sets, which is like the stacking of the spikes and being able to I think it's Destiny Bond his opponents away, so they have that lead Frostlass option is really, really nice. It would be nice if they gave it Freeze Dry, but it's just Ice Beam for right now. Frostlass is going to be one of those really solid fast Pokemon that could be run physical or it could be run special, so it's got a lot of versatility to be able to fit in the team, so shout out to JV for that one. Now you got some speed with Aerodactyl. Solid Pokemon. Tell us about Aerodactyl.
Yeah, so Kurt ended up grabbing that nice elite 130, I believe, speed tier and Arrow. Absolutely love this Pokemon. I think it's genuinely slept on. You see Mega Arrow a lot in Showdown leagues and in elite generations prior being a very, very good Pokemon. Arrow is still very solid, very, very fast, offensive rocker, Edgequake coverage. It got access to Dual Wing Beat, is great flying stab this gen, and Dragon Dance, which, while you think Arrow's already fast, why does it need Dragon Dance? Well, there are potential Scarfers and things like that that can't outspeed Arrow, despite its base 130 speed. So being able to ensure outspeed them while getting that speed boost and the attack boost can be really, really terrifying for a lot of teams to deal with. I believe it also gets access to Taunt as well. Very fast Taunter, Rocker, a bunch of cool options. Great Pokemon.
Definitely. So now we have Chinchou. So Chinchou being taken with the Mono Water team. You could definitely see the reason why he took Chinchou. You could tell that he definitely wanted Lantern, but that was taken a little bit earlier, I believe, in this round. So having that, it looks like this is his backup pick. So Chinchou is going to be that Pokemon that's able to get those really solid dual abilities in Volt Absorb and Water Absorb. So being able to not have to deal with those offensive threats to either abuse his rain or to have an electric type come in and just destroy his team. So Chinchou is going to come in with that Eevee Light, being able to soak up hits and do what he needs to do in the matchup and do it to the best of its abilities. So shout out to baby Chinchou coming into the big boy league, right? So shout out to a small baby Pokemon LC making his appearance here in the NCP. Going on the round 7 recap, what stands out to you the most, man, coming back on the second half of the draft?
Like we were talking about, I love Matt's Zam pick. I think Zam is genuinely phenomenal. Really, really, really solid Pokemon overall. I think that, what else was there? Oh my goodness. The screen's not popping up for me really quick. Awesome. I think the Arrow pick is obviously really solid. I think also another thing you didn't mention with Frostlass is not only does it get access to Poltergeist, it also got triple access this gen. So it got both of its, physical stab options this gen. I think if they give that Pokemon a little bit more attack and special attack, it'd be super sick nasty, but it also gets access to taunt and spikes and gives him a really good speed tier. That's a really solid pick. I love Liv's Metagross pick. Genuine, probably second favorite Pokemon for me all time. Love that Mon, and I think it fits great on her team. And yeah, really solid round overall.
So we're starting to see some holes being filled. So let's see how that goes moving forward. We got the first pick of round number 8 going wheeling back to Kyle A. First pick, round 8, we have Crawdon. Very potent. How many times we talked about Crawdon? I know you've had Crawdon a couple times. Tell us about Crawdon on this type of team.
Yeah. A lot like Zam in my mind, in the sense that it's hard to fit on a team because you typically want your water to be fatter, or you want your offensive water to be faster. And this Pokemon kind of falls in that weird middle ground in the sense that it isn't. But when you draft the mono water, you can draft whatever water type you want. I love Crawdon though, if you can find the opportunity to fit on the team, I Pokemon, and it rips fat builds. It absolutely rips through them. Adaptability, liquidations, crab handers, knockoffs, Aqua Jet for priority are so incredibly difficult to switch in. It got access to close combat this gen. It can Dragon Dance and or Swords Dance. Swords Dance probably being the more reliable of the two, just because this thing isn't very fast at +1 in all honesty. Really, really solid Pokemon, and in rain, it is going to be very difficult to switch into it.
Adaptability boosted crab hammers in rain. Sheesh. And put a choice band on that thing. If you don't have a Pokemon that's able to outspeed it, or your walls don't outspeed it, make sure you watch out. Now we have Skunting coming to Just Kurt and the Walt Disneylanders. This is going to be one of those Pokemon that's going to be, in my mind, one of those like last ditch efforts to like fill in a role, right? So it's a dark and poison typing. If you look at your team and I'm like, I don't have a dark type, I don't have a poison type, let's get them both. Here's Skuntank. Skuntank is a pretty solid Pokemon. I had it in BBR Season 2. I love what it does. It fills a role very specifically. It doesn't have to come every single week. It fills those roles really, really well. It's a ground and poison type, so it will soak up those toxic spikes. It's a dark type. It's not gonna have that full weakness to fairy, which is actually super nice, but it's not gonna have the resistance to fairy as a poison type, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword there. Also have access to fire blast and flamethrower, which is great coverage. It can run physical, it can run special with dark pulse, and access to so dark pulse and crunch, which is really nice for it. And so this thing could be really, really good offensively, and also could be really good defensively because it's deceptively fast. It's I don't remember the speed tier off the top of my head, but it's fast for what it does. And having access to defog is really nice to this team. Having to have another Pokemon that can get rid of hazards is going to be solid for the Walt Disneylanders. Now we have Komodo. I know you're a big Komodo stan. Tell us about Komodo.
Great Pokemon, incredibly versatile. Setup options out the wazoo, being access to autotomize for, you know, just speed boosting nature options. Dragon Dance as well. Gets access to Swords Dance and Bulk Up. So plenty of options, and obviously Clangorous Soul as well. The Omni boosted moves that, you know, boost all your stats by a +1 margin in exchange for 33% of your health, which is obviously, you know, a pretty big trade-off, but really worth it in a lot of matchups. Throat Spray with a lot of sound-based moves, which is awesome. It has three great abilities, I believe, in Overcoat, Bulletproof, and Soundproof, which can all come up incredibly clutch in a lot of different matchups and scenarios. Overcoat the least out of the three, but definitely has its niche uses, which is awesome. Great Stealth Rocker, really fat and annoying Mon. I absolutely love Komodo. I think it's very slept on the draft scene, and him getting it in round 8 is great for Jade.
And I paused the stream for just a second just to mention one thing, that this does have access to Clangorous Soul. So this could run the Omni boosting move that is not banned. He can run that if he wants to run that. So that is something that we do have to keep in mind, and we'll see if he's able to take advantage of that moving forward. So that is allowed for him to use on his Komodo, which could be a big threat. And now we have Cofagrigus going to the Montreal Milotics. It's a pretty fat ghost type Pokemon, pretty solid defensive piece, being able to have access to the toxic spikes, which to be able to be really annoying for a team, and being able to have that solid defensive wall that's able to get rid of abilities is really nice. Like for example, Dracozolt. If Dracozolt's coming in with Hustle and it does hit a Dragon Claw for whatever, for example, and it's able to chew that Dragon Claw hit, remove the Hustle, making Dracozolt a little bit less of a threat, at least until it switches out. So Cofagrigus is able to fill that role really nicely, and being able to have access to the Will-O-Wisp to make those offensive Pokemon a little bit more null and void is really nice for Cofagrigus, and gets good, decent reliable recovery, right? I say decent reliable. Pain Split could be run on this thing, so it could be really annoying for a team that isn't ready for it. So Cofagrigus is going to be solid for the Montreal Milotics. And now speaking of chubby, we have Miltank. Let us know about Miltank.
Miltank is really solid on Vivid's team. It gives him another rocker, a little bit more of a reliable one than Sandaconda, which, well, is, you know, a pretty solid rocker in a sense. It's not a mon that's going to want to come every matchup, so it gives him another rocker in that sense. It gives him another ghost check, gives him that ghost immunity. While Moltres is very fat on the Spadef side, don't get me wrong, it doesn't have the reliable recovery option that Miltank does. So gives him a good ghost check. It really slept on in the sense that it has a really good speed tier for as fat as it is. Having base 100 speed. Obviously you're not running max Jolly Miltank a lot of the time, but it does kind of allow him to outspeed a lot of the other fatter things he's going to be dealing with. Curse Miltank is definitely really solid as well. Gets access to Scrappy and Sap Zipper, so really solid bond. Love Miltank.
Now we have another big thick Pokemon we have is the Steel type Copperajah. Copperajah is one of those Pokemon that's kind of tough as a Steel type. You want your Steel type to eat a lot of hits. This thing has a really big HP stat, but the defenses aren't that high, but it can be nullified depending on the EV spreads obviously. But it's got good offensive prowess, being have access to Sheer Force and really good coverage. Play Rough, Power Whip, and giving access to I think it's Heavy Metal to be able to boost its Heavy Slams and Heat Crashes, which is super nice, giving access to Stealth Rock. It can fill the roles that you need as a Steel type, because Steel types with Stealth Rock are kind of a dime a dozen nowadays, so Copperajah is able to fill that role in a way. It's not the best Steel type in the world, but it could be really good depending on the matchup. If you can get up a Trick Room too, it could be really good Trick Room sweeper. So it does hit like an absolute truck. Can it be thick? Yeah, so we'll see how mid can handle it this season. Now we have Gengar. I love Gengar. Tell us about Gengar.
Yeah, Gengar fills a phenomenal speed tier for Leo. He really needed that 110 bridge to kind of bridge the gap between Victini and Weavile. So great stuff by Leo. Here it gives him a Ghost. It gives him a Grounded Poison, which he did not have up to this point, which is really important when you have fat, annoying mons like P2, Hurt, Jordagon, things like that. So having that ability to get rid of those T-Spikes, obviously very solid. Phenomenal, potent wall breaker as well. Really punches through teams. It did get access to Nascal at this gen, though I don't think it's the best on Gengar. It's very hard to, facilitate situations in which you can click that. But very strong stab options, gets access to Focus Blast and Dazzling Gleam and, Thunderbolt, Icy Wind. A bunch of cool options. Taunt, Willow, Hex sets, great sets as well. So good stuff by Leo.
And now we have Regirock. Regirock being drafted by the Rillaboomers. Regirock is a pretty solid rock type, pure rock type Pokemon. It's a really good defensive piece to be able to add to a team. It does eat up those special hits really nicely. It could be a good defensive backbone for a team. As you can see on this squad, it's looking like he's got a really good offensive pieces, and having Regirock on there to be able to reliably switch in on hits is really nice. It's got good solid coverage for itself to be an offensive piece as well. So Regirock is going to be one of those Pokemon you just never know if it's going to come as a defensive wall or if it's going to come offensively. It could be tailor-made. It's one of the Regirocks that doesn't necessarily get drafted. You typically see just Registeel go, and obviously now Reggie Elecki, but Regirock could be a pretty solid piece for this team moving forward. It's going to be interesting to see how he uses it this season. And now we have Conkeldurr. So it's a funny story. Actually, Conkeldurr was not on my radar. Front office, me meaning Owen here that's with us today. He recommended Conkeldurr to me, and I've never used it before, so I wasn't actually really comfortable in drafting this, but in practicing with it and seeing a little bit more, I'm actually really happy that I ended up keeping Conkeldurr on the team. This thing hits like an absolute truck. It's our second Guts user, so it has a base 140 attack that gets boosted by Guts, hits like an absolute truck, and having access to Mach Punch is really nice for priority if there's a Pokemon that's getting really out of hand. Having it boosted by Guts or by Iron Fist, getting that other ability, it's got really great abilities, honestly. Being able to be that status absorber and running Assault Vest to be super bulky on the Spadef side, but basically coming in and clicking buttons. This thing gets amazing coverage, and getting access to knockoff to be able to hit the ghost types. Conkeldurr can be kind of like a secondary Obstagoon option, a little bit slower, could be taken advantage of a little bit more, but Conkeldurr still comes in and does what it does best, and it just clicks buttons, and we'll see how we can use it this season. I'm actually really excited to see what it could do. Now we have Drifblim with the Delta Gligar. Tell us about Drifblim.
Yeah, so Mr. Platinum Howler ended up grabbing Drifblim. Solid in the terrain, honestly, with Lele, with, cool seed options. Obviously, having access to Unburden as an ability, being able to Calm Mind Up, Strength Sap. I had Drifblim this most recent season of the BBR. Really fun slept on mon. I think if you know how to EV properly and you can spec into its bulk opposed with massive HP, it can be genuinely obnoxious to deal with. Strength Sap's a great move, and Ghost is probably the most spammable typing in the game this generation. So really solid in that sense. He didn't have a Ghost yet. This gives him a potential spin blocker, though he doesn't really have much hazards, which is something that he should probably look to patch in these next 3 picks. Right now he has Mono Hippo as his rocks, so something to keep in mind, but definitely solid mon nonetheless, for a later point.
And now we have Wigglytuff going. So now we can see that the coaches are starting to scrape to get pieces onto their team. Wigglytuff is it's a pretty cool Pokemon, right? It's a Generation 1 Pokemon. It was a normal type then. It's a fairy normal type now. So it does get amazing normal type coverage that Game Freak decided to just gift all the normal types from that first generation. So amazing coverage offensively, getting access to competitive. It could be like a low-key, really good offensive Pokemon. If you were able to get that boost from like a defog, trying to get rid of your hazards or something like that. But being able to get access to teleport as well as wish, this thing gets a really thick HP stat, so it does do really good wish passes. Wigglytuff getting access to rocks. It can be a good cleric, it can be a good hazard setter. It's different because it's a fairy type with the normal typing, so it doesn't resist fighting, which isn't something that I personally would like, but Wigglytuff can do what it does best at the point value that it's at, so it's good value for where you can get it. So solid pickup by the Torterra pins there. Now we have Type Null. Type Null, someone finally takes it from Vepsis. Let's go. What do you think about Type Null on this team?
Yeah, so if you guys don't know, last season I don't know what it was, we just completely oversighted Type Null in the tier list. We had like 3 points or something crazy like that. And Vets just scooped it up and showed us like, hey, pay attention next time. Great fat normal, man. Great bulky pivot as well with actually U-turn. This thing just rest talks and U-turns and pivots around all over the place, which is great with Josh's team in those potent wall breakers like Heracross and Crocodile and Thundurus and getting in that Mew for free. Especially with the insane amount of hazards, honestly, that he does have. That can be genuinely obnoxious for him. Those fighting types come in, you U-turn, you go out into your Mew, you go out into your Pex, you go out into your Thundurus. You're sitting pretty, so that's obviously great. It gives him a more reliable ghost check. You don't want your Crook always switching it on Ghost as well, so very, very solid by Mr. Josh.
Vepsis put in the chat that he buffed it by 4 points and he's proud. Hey, yes you did. Yes you did. Did a great job last season. Skarmory being picked up by the Vegas Golden D Knights. Skarmory's a pretty solid. I love this Pokemon. Fun fact, last season we had an unfortunate drop to one of our coaches, and this Pokemon ended up being on the free agency block, and almost half the coaches just ran at the opportunity to put this thing on the team because of what it offers for a squad. This thing is a solid defensive Pokemon that's able to come in and literally just soak up hits and not care. The dual typing of flying and steel being shared with only Reggie Steel and Corbin Knight is actually really nice for it. That defensive typing is phenomenal, only being weak to fire and electric, which he handles relatively well in his team, being have Goodra on the squad. So Goodra plus Skarmory is going to be really tough to break, to be honest, and being able to recover all that up with Roost, pretty solid. And also having access to Spikes and Stealth Rock, both hazards, and it's really, really nice to be able to defog that stuff away so he can get rid of the hazards that are on the field and then just set them back up again. It's going to be super solid for the squad. So Skarmory is going to be really tough to break. It's one of those Pokemon that you can just fit in on any team and it's just going to soak up hits for you. So shout out to the Vegas Golden D Knights. Now we have Arcanine with Vepsis. Tell us about Arcanine a little bit more on this team.
Slow momentum for Mr. Vepsis. Gives him another fair resist, which is very, very funny. Good Intimidate pivot, very, very solid mod overall. Gets access to reliable recovery, Morning Sun, priority, and extreme speed. Can flare blitz through some teams. Can also be special very, very easily. Got access to Scorching Sands, which is actually really solid coverage for it. And honestly, very solid offensively too. People really sleep on the offensive potential that Arcanine can have because you see it as that fat Intimidate pivot. And it just got so much better this gen with the access to heavy duty boots and things like that. So really solid pickup by Vepsis. He loves his fat, annoying pivot, so it definitely fits well. My turn again. I picked up Talonflame. If you look at my team, my speed tiers were kind of bad. We peaked at Latias, but it's definitely not something I enjoy at all. So we picked up Big T-Flame. It gives me something to break through steals a little bit better as well. So a lot of our offense is able to break through those fat steals that are fat doesn't appreciate, which is obviously great. We had Moltres last season, which I do prefer, but Talonflame hits a better speed tier for us this season. Gives us momentum and U-turn. Gives us a bulk up threat to potentially win games on its own. Potential priority with Gale Wings, and obviously the access to heavy duty boots exponentially made Talonflame so much better. I enjoyed using this thing a lot in GDL Season 2, and I'm sure I'll enjoy using it here as well. So great mod overall, for sure.
Most definitely. Now we have Liv here to cap out round number 8. Tell us about one of my favorite Pokemon of all time, Quillfish.
So I needed a D-Right counter, so I got Quillfish. I'm really tired of losing to D-Ray, so I got Quillfish. So yeah, now I can finally stop losing to D-Ray. That's really it.
Fun fact.
It.
The reason she's
not
mentioning,
the grounded poison aspect, not the spikes. Just we don't want to lose to D-Ray.
Yeah, I'm fucking tired of it. Yeah, no, you beat like 3 times in a row now. I'm embarrassed.
Fun fact, the reason she's mentioning, for those who don't know, Vepsis started this. It happened in AP Academy. I'm not going to mention that game, but basically whatever Coalfish comes, for whatever reason, I've never won the game whenever there's a Coalfish on the other side. I don't know why. I can't break the Pokemon. I hate it. It's dumb. It's stupid. It's got a duck face all the time, and lives, like she said, tired of losing. So now she's got a perfect kryptonite for the San Diego Snuggler. So here we are. Rip. So that's going to end up round number 8, guys. Liv will keep you in call because you're going to start us off on round number 9. But Owen, tell us a little bit more of your analysis on round 8 here.
So there were Pokemon this round, well, 2 in particular that went, or I would even say 3 that went pretty late in the draft compared to when they usually go. Just, coaches not valuing them as highly for their teams, and a couple of other coaches realizing they can wait on them a little bit. Leo got round 8 Gengar, which is very, very solid. You got round 8 Conkeldurr, which is very, very solid, very annoying, strong Mon. And then round 8 Skarmory is also very, very crazy to me. Obviously, one of the best hazard setters and removers in the game. Great, phenomenal defensive steel type to really check a lot of things his team doesn't appreciate. So, really, really good stuff, this round. A lot of people got some big threats. I know the Shuckle King pick, the Reggie Rock, was a big snipe for me. So that was really unfortunate. You're going to see my next round pick. It kind of threw my plans a little bit for a loop, but hopefully we can kind of bounce back.
That's the fun part about drafting for those who've already drafted before. Now we're going to start to see some picks where they're going to start to scramble, like how Owen just mentioned that he wanted to get Reggie Rock on his team. Now he's forced to get something different that's a plan B, and sometimes plan B isn't as good as plan A. So it's going to be fun to see some interesting picks being picked moving forward. So we'll see how this thing turns out. So at the start of round number 9, the very first pick we have Miss Olivia Sama with Piloswine. Tell us about it, girl.
So Piloswine's pretty cool here. It's nice for thick fat. As I mentioned, I really wanted to patch up my ice weakness, and I did later on in the draft. I think DRA assumed I was going to say something funny. I was serious with this one. But Piloswine's pretty cool, though. It gives me another rocker. Doing that in Metagross, even though my other rockers are Clefairy and Terrakion, I'm kind of set. I never need to click rocks on anything else. Piloswine's cool. It also looks kind of dumb. Like, when you flip up the little eye thingies, its eyes are like tiny dots. Looks kind of dumb, but it fits the team because the whole team looks kind of dumb. That's really good.
Aesthetic is always super, super important. Thanks, Liv. Appreciate it. Next pick, guys, we have is the Golden Boy. Explode. Tell us about this normal type.
Yeah, so something I noticed with my team, and I'm sure a lot of you noticed, I lack a lot of special offense, and I lack that special wall-breaking threat. And I really do like Explode for that. I think Explode is a phenomenal breaker in the sense that really the only things I can pivot in on Explode if it's positioned correctly is going to be fat rocks and fat steels that are going to resist boomers. Because obviously Scrappy, we can hit the ghost types as well, and even if we didn't, we have an Urshifu. So Explode often baits in a lot of the things that Urshifu really, really rips through. So if I can play aggressively enough, maybe getting in on a double, something like that, we're actually sitting pretty with Explode. It is a Pokemon that is not always going to come because it's speed tier, but it can definitely punish fatter builds, which is something I need.
Whimsicott. Whimsicott's a really cool Pokemon. I love Whimsicott. I've always tried to fit it on a team. I can never really could because I want my Fairy to do something different. I want my Grass to do something different. But the combination of Grass Fairy and the speed tier is really nice. It's a solid Pokemon in regards to support. You can compare it a lot to Grimmsnarl and Klefki because they do a lot of the same things. But what puts it over the top that those two don't have, it gets access to Tailwind. And that could be really nice for this team. Being able to pivot in with U-Turn and get in all these really annoying Regenerator Pokemon on this team is going to be really nice for Vepsis, as well as that getting that little extra oomph with that Tailwind, maybe boosting the speed of Mienshao, boosting the speed of Hydreigon. That could be really nice. And also having access to Default to get rid of those hazards is super clutch. It's got some defensive utility. It's able to switch in on some ground types kind of well, and it's able to switch in on those dragon types amazingly, but it's not that bulky and doesn't hit very hard. But hey, it's going to be able to fill that role that Vepsis needs for every matchup. So watch out for whatever Vepsis can do for it this season. Now we have Volcarona coming pretty late. Volcarona round 9. What do you think about this in the Vegas Gold 3 Nights?
Yeah, Volk pretty late, which is obviously very, very solid. Very potent setup sweeper if he can find the position to get it in. That's obviously very, very solid. He does have good pivots into, well, he does struggle with the 4x rock weakness that Volcarona has, in the sense that a lot of his potential pivots are neutral them, so he has to be careful about that. He is a little bit of edge quake weak once the Skarm gets a little bit chipped down, but definitely a very potent offensive threat. Can set up a quiver dance and really prosper and do super well. So definitely pretty solid here by Mr. Davion.
Yeah, for sure. And then I will note, guys, at this point at the draft, Davion is now taking over. So from here on, these are Davion's picks. He's now in the draft. Chimpat has now left us from then on, and now Davion is here. So these are the picks that he picked. So now that he's completely taken over, the baton has been passed. So now we've made that adjustment. Just to kind of give some context from what we talked about before when the draft started. The next pick we have is Alolan Marowak being taken by Ultra Player. So Alolan Marowak is a really solid ghost and fire type Pokemon. It's a really solid wall breaker and hits like an absolute truck, giving that access to Thick Club, being able to basically double its attack and giving it Poltergeist this generation. It makes it hit even harder, having access to Shadow Bone as well for an alternative motive in case his opponents do prep for not bringing an item and failing the Poltergeist, which is really nice. And Flare Blitz, Flare Blitz off of this thing is really tough to deal with. It gets access to Earthquake as well as Bone Meringue, so he has a double hit option. He also has the Earthquake option. Being able to boost his speed with Flame Charge is really nice. And also having access to Stealth Rock. It's a really good offensive Stealth Rocker, so if it's able to scare out a threat and set up Stealth Rock reliably. So there's a lot of things that Marowak can do, and having that wall breaking potential with this team is actually super duper clutch, and he's able to get rid of those bulky grass type Pokemon that maybe Crocodile doesn't appreciate and maybe Thundurus doesn't appreciate. So if those grass types come in, then Alolan Marowak can take care of business. So we're gonna see what he could do with it this season. Now we have Ice Horse. This was taken a lot earlier in other drafts. Now we've moved forward a little bit. What do you think about Glastrier fitting on round 9 for the Torterra pins?
Yeah, so he does have potential Trick Room support in Mesprit to get this thing in. I think this Pokemon was definitely a lot more hype around it, you know, at the start of the Crown Tundra DLC. Obviously, it being, you know, pretty cool and strong looking Pokemon. It struggles a lot with fat waters, which I will say I don't know if Kelly's team particularly punishes super well at this point. He obviously has a Zera Aura, but that's the thing, you want to harden in on the waters a lot of the time, which, you know, it obviously does break through them, which is nice. I think it's very important for him to potentially grab a fat grass, you know, in these next 2 picks. But other than that, you know, very solid mon. Looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be if it's going to Trick Room and it's got those boosts, those Moxie attack boosts, is going to be pretty tough to deal with. Now we have another sand quote-unquote sweeper. We have Stoutland being added to the sand team. He doesn't have a full sand team, but he does have that element. It's cool to see that he added another little potential abuser of sand, the sand, to be able to get Sand Rush on Stoutland. This gen is not really as good as it was in Gen 7 because it did lose access to that stab return or that stab frustration, but it does still have other options that it can run. Stoutland does have pretty solid coverage with the crunch and play rough, etc. So Stoutland could be pretty good in some matchups. You may not see it come very often, but for some matchups that it does fill up that role really nicely, and it doesn't really have to run in the sand as well. It does have access to Intimidate, so it could be that bulky Intimidate Pokemon to drop the attack power of whatever offensive threat that his opponent has. So Stoutland could be pretty scary and not knowing really what's going to come in because he doesn't have that full sand aspect to his team. Now we have Cryogonal. So this is my pick. So I'm super excited to get Cryogonal. I've always wanted to pick Cryogonal. I just never could really fit it on a team. It's a cool Pokemon that it's drawn my attention a lot because of the couple niches that it has, right? Number one being its ability to levitate, being able to switch it on a ground type. Heatran hates ground type, so I wanted to get more stuff to be able to check with that. Gourgeist doesn't want to have that pressure on the entire time, so being able to switch into ground types and be immune to other moves aside from Excadrill, because no, nothing really, I hate Excadrill. That thing with the Mold Breaker, it sucks, but able to come in on most ground types and be able to hit it with super effective damage with Ice Stab, having access to Freeze Dry, being able to get that 4x super effective damage on any water ground type is really nice, and having access to Rapid Spin. So it's one of those Pokemon that's able to remove hazards for me reliably with access to heavy duty boots and recover. So really thick Pokemon, get rid of hazards. Really nice Pokemon to add on to the team. Now we have Blacephalon with Shuckle King. What do you think about the clown here?
Pokemon I really want to try a lot. I think in Gen 8 it got exponentially better in the sense that Pursuit is gone and Ghost is the most spammable type in the game right now. So that's obviously very solid. It gives him a really strong fire type too to break through. Again, a lot of those steals that some of his other Pokemon don't appreciate. And I think you turning in, you know, on a potential steal being the Ice Resist with your Darm or your Scizor or something like that, and getting in Blacephalon for free is absolutely amazing. He has plenty of momentum to, you know, potentially get it in. And, you know, really punish teams because, again, incredibly spammable stuff. Good stuff by Shuckle.
Yeah, solid Ultra Beast there. Now we have Scrafty. Scrafty, I love Scrafty. Scrafty is a pretty cool fighting and dark type Pokemon. Getting access to Intimidate, as well as Moxie, I believe is what it gets as well. Having access to the Dragon Dance move. It's pretty slow. It doesn't... Shed Skin as well. It doesn't necessarily want to set up Dragon Dances all the time because it isn't the fastest thing in the world, but in some matchups it can come in pretty clutch. I'll let you talk about Scrafty too, because I know you came in and using it hot last season. So tell us a little bit about it real quick.
Yeah, Scrafty was actually second on my team in kills. My stuff was very, very evenly distributed, but Scrafty ended up going like 8 and 2 for me. Great mon if you can support it correctly. Shedskin shrugging off status, Intimidate being one of the best abilities in the game. Even Moxie in weird matchups if you potentially want to bring that, but it gets access to bulk up. Knockoff, obviously one of the most valuable moves in the game. His dual stabs are great. Doesn't appreciate fairies, but Leo does have Victini, which is obviously very nice for fairies. He also has a whole Gengar, which is again very nice for fairies, and a Melmetal, which is very nice for fairies. So really solid low tier pick form. It gives him a more fat dark type that, you know, Weavile can't really fill, and, you know, just more for those offensive ghosts that might give him a little bit of trouble.
So definitely good pairing on this team for sure. Now we have Porygon Z, an extremely hard hitting normal type on the special side. This thing gets great coverage with Bolt Beam, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and having access to Tri Attack as well as Uproar, which is really nice as well. And I think there's another move that it gets is super strong on the especially offensive side that I can't remember off the top of my head, but this thing is going to be super tough to deal with on the especially offensive side. Having access to Nasty Plot is really nice. It's a good offensive special breaker to have on this team. It's not the best in regards to defensive wise. It's just going to come offensively most of the time, but hey, mid is really nice with these wall breakers, so hopefully he's able to put work with it this season. Now we have Hitmonlee on terrain. What do you think about Hitmonlee for this team?
So yeah, it gives the unburdened potential option with Hitmonlee, you know, with both the grassy and the electric terrain. It also gives him rapid spin, which is really nice because he didn't have an option to spin up to this point. He did have a few defoggers, but honestly, his defoggers don't want to run that too often, other than potentially the Moltres twins, and you know, especially regular Moltres. I think you're much better off if you can, you know, slot 2 attack moves than like U-turn and Roost on or something like that. So definitely gives him another option there, and again, that unburdened sweeper is definitely solid.
Yeah, for sure. And now we have a Alolan Dougie going to the Montreal Milotics. So as you can see here, don't really know if this is confirmed just yet, but we have the Sand Forcing Alolan Doug trio as long as the Sand Rushing, Sand Forcing Excadrill. Maybe he's going to grab something moving forward a little bit. So this is a good speed tier for him to fit. This is another dual typing that he already has with Excadrill with the ground and steel typing, but this thing fits a little bit of a different role. Having access, being able to come in and be a lead option to set up Stealth Rock and maybe hit a good Earthquake or an Iron Head and be able to Sucker Punch whatever lead Pokemon is going to be coming in that matchup. That can be really nice. But this thing generally wants to just come in and be in Glass Cannon and hit something really hard and get out. Its ability, Tingling Hair, I think is what it's called. It does reduce speed, which is kind of nice. Having that steel typing, having a resistance to a lot of moves, being able to eat a hit like a normal type and still be able to get another hit off and drop the speed to get double hits off. That's pretty cool. So Alolan Dougie is one of those niche low tier picks that fits on specific teams. So let's see if he's able to support that moving forward. Now we have Baby Volibee for the Victinis. What do you think about Baby Volibee?
Very solid low tier mon. Little Cup Goat. I will say it is a bit iffy that this is his dark type, because again, I like my dark types to be offensive pressure psychic types. This one doesn't really do so, but it can taunt. It can, you know, do a bunch of different things to kind of slow their roll if they're going to try and, you know, set up and win the game. It gets access to momentum options and U-turn. It can obviously defog rocks away, which is, you know, very important for this team. He doesn't have the most removal options. I believe up to this point it's only Serena, which is obviously nice. Granted, he does have some pretty big hazard stack of his own, so maybe he doesn't want to defog all the time, but definitely a pretty solid mana. And again, if this was Little Cup round 9, Old dude, be crazy.
Be crazy. Now we have Gyarados for the Walt Disney Landers. Gyarados is a pretty solid Pokemon for this team. It's a solid ground immunity, being able to come in and be a secondary water for the team. Gyarados gives that offensive presence that Suicune definitely does not. Suicune's more of that fat Pokemon. Gyarados is able to come in and force immediate offensive pressure, which is super nice for this team. And having access to Intimidate is phenomenal to be able to drop those attack power of the offensive threats of his opponent. And being able to have that Moxie boosting Dragon Dance sweeping potential for this squad is really nice. The buff that they got, which Power Whip, is really nice to be able to hit those opposing water types and opposing water absorb Pokemon, which is really, really nice. It would have been nice if they gave it Liquidation, but they still have still has Waterfall, which is really nice on the physically offensive side. It doesn't have any stab for the flying typing aside from bounce, which kind of sucks, but Gyarados is still one of those Pokemon that has to be taken account of, because if you let it get up a Dragon Dance, you don't have a check for it, it's just going to be super, it's just going to tear you apart, honestly. Now we have Starmie to add on to this mono water team. What do you think?
I think what Starmie offers to this team is a much needed speed tier. Kyle speed tiers up to this point kind of do butter. They're not the greatest. His fast Pokemon being Tentacool, which often doesn't want to run very fast or max speed, and then drops all the way to Dracovish, but this at least gives him that 110 plus elite speed tier. It gives him potential rapid spin options. It gives him a psychic, pretty solid strong wall breaker in some specific niche instances, and a good status absorber, which is really important on this team. That's cleric is Chinchou, which obviously isn't the best cleric in the world. So good stuff by Kyle. Definitely a pretty needed pick here for sure.
Yeah, speed tier, muy importante. So now we have the end of round number 9. This is the recap that we had going on so far. The biggest takeaway that I see, that's the biggest thing, is that I love your Exploit pick, being able to have the special offensive threat as well as the Porygon. We have those offensive normal types coming in, so a little bit more of a trend coming there. I love the Alolan Marowak pick. That's just a personal bias. I love Alolan Marowak. That thing hits so freaking hard. Yeah, it does cost you running an item because you're forced to kind of run that thick club, but it still is so tough to deal with offensively. Which Pokemon stands out to you the most?
That PZ for sure. That was actually the Pokemon I was very heavily debating over Exploit plus Talonflame, but I kind of just needed the point, so I went Exploit instead. PZ, I'm a huge PZ stan. If you use that thing correctly, it does not have switches between Tri-Attack and then just, Shadow Ball or Dark Pulse, whatever, for the normal immunity. It pushes through its checks phenomenally. So great Pokemon. I think that the Gyarados pick by Kurt, obviously very good. I think that Pokemon's defensive utility is very slept on as well with Intimidate and Boots. I've seen Rest Talk sets go crazy. I've seen Subtoxic sets go crazy. Incredibly, really strong Mon, but great defensive utility. So good stuff by Kurt.
Most definitely, guys. Now we're gonna hop right into round number 10. We're in the home stretch, guys. Teams are gonna start to fill in those holes that we've got. We've been here for quite some time, and we're trying to see what exactly. We're anxious to see how they fill those holes because there's some gaps that are being shown, and we're gonna see how these coaches are gonna be creative with the points that they have left. So starting off in round number 10, the very first pick we have for the Miami Dawn fans is Poliwrath. Poliwrath is another. We have a Swift Swimmer, a very potent one, and it has a really good secondary ability in Water Absorb, which is really nice to be able to check those water type Pokemon that may want to abuse the rain that Kyle has. And it's a pretty decent fighting type. Getting access to some pretty solid coverage. Poliwrath is one of those niche fighting types that's able to be very bulky as well. Poliwrath is able to soak up those hits and dish them back pretty well. It does have access to Drain Punch, which is really nice for that recovery. If it wants to run that Assault Vest set, it's able to hit those Drain Punches and then just get out of there. But Poliwrath is going to be a pretty solid defensive check to those water types as well as a Swift Swimmer depending on the matchup. So it's not a Pokemon you think maybe be coming in often, but when it does, it's going to fill a big role for sure. And then we have Bouffalant, big Bouffalant for the Walt Disney Lender. What do you think about this one?
Really solid on, actually. I like Boof a lot. Gives him Sap Sipper, gives him Reckless Head Charges, which is obviously very strong. Good Ghost Resist, which Kurt has some pretty sus ones up to this point. It's Skuntank, which gets overwhelmed pretty easily, so getting Boof to also help check those things is awesome. It gets us Sword Dance. Cotton Guard is another cool option this thing can get, is like cool Double Dance type sets. Very solid slept on Mon. I think people really don't think about Bouffalant a lot because, I don't know, it's just kind of like Scuffed Tauros. But really cool Mon for Kurt. Really excited to see how he uses this.
It's going to be fun to see how these low tiers start to fit on these teams. And now we have not a low tier. We have Landorus Incarnate. So Landorus is going to be a really hard-hitting ground type Pokemon. It's not going to be as potent as Therian is going to be, but it still has its niches, right? This has to be Sand Force. It is not Sheer Force because that would be way too much. But Landorus is going to be coming in and being able to defog hazards, right? It's able to be run physical, can run special, can run Earth Power, Earthquakes, giving access to Stone Edge and Rock Slide, being able to hit those Sludge Waves, so maybe potential checks that come in like bulky grass types, so it's able to hit those very well. It's able to hit the fairies as well. Landorus is going to be a really good offensive Pokemon for this team, and if he's able to maybe get manual sand, it's going to hit that much harder, so that teams do have to definitely keep that in account. So Landorus is going to be a pretty solid pickup for the Victinis. Now we have Lapras, a low tier water for the ocean. Tell us about this one.
So, low tier water type, definitely a really interesting Pokemon. Its defensive utility is a little bit better with access to heavy duty boots. It can freeze dry and really punish other bulky waters, which is awesome. It's a 4x ice resist, which is always nice for a team that doesn't necessarily appreciate ice moves up to this point. Right now his only switching will be Urshifu, and it also gives him a fat water that's not Urshifu. It takes off that defensive pressure that Urshifu really doesn't want to take on. So nice for Matt to have, while it is a budget fat water, it's nice for him to have a fat water, in general. So good stuff.
Just in case. And now we have Garbodor picking up. We have a grounded, meaning a poison type that is touching the ground to be able to soak up those spikes and be able to send them off himself. We have Garbodor. Garbodor is one of those Pokemon that's a really solid low tier poison type that's able to set up hazards. It's able to be really fat, really annoying. It's got solid coverage. Depending on the matchup, it's not going to do the most damage, but the coverage that it has is going to be able to do what Vivid needs it to do. So Garbodor is one of those Pokemon that if I don't have a poison type, it's pretty solid, is able to fit that role in really, really well. It's not going to come a lot, but being able to hit those aftermaths as it goes down is going to be super clutch for Vivid. So Garbodor is going to be pretty solid on this squad. Then we have Rabombi. Rabombi picking up with the Kentucky Torghast. What do you think about this pick, man?
Hopefully brings it this season. Mid-drafted Rabombi last season and actually, in fact, did not bring it to a single game, which is fair. I don't think Rabombi's the best Pokemon in the world in this sense. But hopefully brings it this season. I think he has a couple Pokemon on his team that really would appreciate the web support. Things like Necro, things like the Porygon Z, especially running Specs PZ under webs can be very, very difficult for teams to deal with. So in some specific niche instances, I think that webs can come up kind of clutch for him. And it also gives him a good speed tier in the sense that his fastest Pokemon up to this point was going to be Alolan Persian and Tornadus Incarnate. So having something with a more elite speed tier is obviously very nice as well. It grabs the momentum on those fast steel types, gets in Zygarde, and Rotom for free. So cool stuff.
Speaking of low tier stuff, we have Eldegoss going to the Durham Druddigons. Eldegoss is one of those Pokemon that is looked at as not necessarily the best grass type because it doesn't get the coverage, but it's able to do what the Druddigons needed to do. What does it do? It comes in, soaks up hits, and gets out. It's got access to Regenerator as well as Rapid Spin, so it's a pretty solid option to get rid of hazards. It's not going to be the offensive threat that you're going to be afraid of, but it's going to be something that could be a decent backbone to the team. It gets rid of hazards that his team right now doesn't really like. His really only hazard removal that's reliably coming every single week is going to be Togekiss. So we're going to have to see how he's going to handle the hazards, but then moving forward, he either runs Defog on Togekiss or he brings Eldegoss. So we'll see what you can do with it this season. And then we have Reggie Gigas, a Pokemon we don't necessarily see drafted very often. What do you think about this pick?
Good Pokemon actually, and it's cool to see double Reggie on the team obviously, but it's cool to see Reggie Gigas get a little bit better this gen and got access to Protect and also got access to Rest, really allowing you to find opportunities to get past that slow start, which really does hinder it. In a lot of matchups, I've seen Reggie Gigas go absolutely insane in this most recent gen in the time in which he got access to Protect and Rest. It gets cool moves like Power Up Punch and things like that. It can really rip through teams. I've even seen Assault Vest do well because this thing's pretty insane bulk despite its pretty bad passivity otherwise while it's waiting to get that slow start over with. So really solid mon. I believe it also gives him a normal type, so great Ghost Pivot, which is obviously dope because his team was pretty Ghost weak in the sense that his Ghost just prior to this was Pangoro, which isn't one, so definitely good stuff for Chuckle.
And now we have Xatu coming in. So Xatu is a pretty solid Pokemon. I've actually wanted to use Xatu for a really long time. Xatu is one of those Pokemon that looks really fun and it has good defensive utility on paper, and hopefully I can execute it this season. The biggest attraction that I had to Xatu is two things. Is Magic Bounce, giving that ability to be able to come in and then bounce back hazards that my opponent maybe want to set. If I can predict my opponent to want to go for Stealth Rock, bring in Xatu, bounce those hazards right on back, or maybe even lead with it to ensure that I don't get Sticky Web up on the field, etc, etc, etc. Also having access to Teleport is really nice. It's not the bulkiest thing in the world, but having the dual typing of Flying and Psychic could be really nice for a fighting type. To come and soak out that hit and then teleport out. That slow pivots can be really nice to get in Obstagoon, to get in Conkeldurr, to get in Garchomp. So that's gonna be really nice, and it's another way for me to be able to get in onto those ground types and be able to hit those really hard. And if my opponent doesn't have a good Dark type, maybe I'll set up and hit those stored power sets. So I'm super excited to have Xatu on this team. Now we have Klefki. What do you think about this steel type on this team?
The key is this gives him more hazards. Hallelujah. It spikes. His team really appreciates the spike stack as well, so good stuff by Howler. It gives him a secondary fairy, taking a little bit of pressure off of Leila, which I think is a little bit important. You don't want to use that thing defensively, and he has the option to have the Klefki a little bit more to check those offensive dragons and things like that. So good stuff by Howler. The only thing that scares me though, I don't like this pick because Prankster does not like Psychic Terrain, and Lele is probably one of the centerpiece pieces of this team. So that does make me very nervous in the sense that he's going to have to play very particularly to bring Klefki plus Lele, or he's going to have to choose which one to bring. And I think that that kind of pigeonholing isn't great in a draft setting. But Klefki as a whole has benefits for this team.
Telepathy Lele coming in hot. Now we have Thwackey coming in for the Maryland Torterrapins. Thwackey is a pretty solid option, right? Think of this as baby Rillaboom, because it is baby Rillaboom. Giving access to grassy terrain and still having grassy glide is really nice for this Pokemon. Being able to run Eviolite, it could be a solid grass defensive pivot, or it could just run Choice Band and hit grassy glides and just do that way. It just does the same thing that Rillaboom wants to do, just a little bit less of a threat in regards to its attack stat. But Thwackey can do a lot of the same stuff, and it provides grassy terrain for the team, where he has a lot of really potent ground weaknesses, naming Nidoqueen, as well as the Incineroar, and even Glastrier doesn't want to take a ground type move. Even though it's not weak to it, it still doesn't want to take a ground type move. It wants to just hit things really hard. So having that support and that reliable recovery and that passive recovery with grassy terrain is going to be super nice for this team. So let's see how he does with this season. We have Comfey. I know that this thing is something that ends up on Ultra players' hands a lot. Tell us about Comfey.
Really solid mod. Obviously Triage giving it priority on all of its healing moves, whether it be Synthesis or Leech Seed or Draining Kiss, obviously, as its attack move. Really solid. If you're playing a team without a great Steel type, this Pokemon can really rip through you with a Calm Mindset. Even if you do have that good Poison, Calm Mind plus Weakness Policy and Stored Power can really rip through a lot of teams. Gets access to Momentum and U-Turn, gives him another Defogger, and gives him that Fairy type that he really needs at this point. So Comfey is definitely a good slot.
And then we have back-to-back fairies going. We have Hatterene that's going a lot later nowadays than it has in previous draft leagues at the beginning of the gen. It still does, excuse me. It still does what it does best. It's a very slow offensive threat with access to Trick Room. So Trick Room supers typically are not as well thought of because they have to have a different Trick Room setter in order for it to come in and do its work. We'll say like Glastrier, right? Glastrier and Melmetal. Those Pokemon do really well in the Trick Room, but they don't set up themselves. Hatterene does, so it's able to set up its own Trick Room, have the full 4 turns to be able to wreak havoc. It doesn't get access to Moonblast, only Dazzling Gleam, which is actually kind of a good thing, or else this thing would be a crazy bigger threat. Hatterene gets solid coverage for Steel types, getting access to Mystical Fire, as well as Giga Drain to be able to get that recovery as well, and Draining Kiss. So Hatterene could be one of those Pokemon, if you're not prepped for it, it could just sweep you by setting up Trick Room. So it's going to be really fun to watch that Pokemon go to town this season. And now we have Sableye, a low tier Dark and Ghost type. What do you think about Sableye on the Productions?
And in specific matchups, this Pokemon could actually be genuinely obnoxious. With access to Prankster, moves like Taunt and Toxic and Will-O-Wisp and, things like that. Definitely very annoying to deal with in specific matchups if underprepared for. He already does have the Dark and Hydreigon. So I don't necessarily know the point of Sableye on this specific team in the sense that it already has a solid normal resist and Registeel. Maybe he just wanted that immunity. I'm sure Vestas has his reasons behind it. He's a very smart player and drafter. But this Pokemon can definitely be a genuine nuisance if underprepared for, with that Prankster, shenanigans that can kind of throw off and stuff like that. My turn again, Colossal. Well, I was talking about it earlier. I really ran Regirock because I wanted to be a rocker. I would have taken it probably before X-Cloud. This is the most recent round. But then I saw it and it went, and I needed not only a rocker, I wanted another flying resist, I wanted a rock type, and realistically the only one that fit on my team at this point was going to be Colossal. So we are rocking out with double fire and double normal. The double normal isn't as bad in my mind in the sense that they do completely different things. Colossal plus Talonflame, a little bit more iffy, but it gives me rocks, it gives me spikes, and it gives me spin, which were the most important things. It's not really here for the fire typing, it's here to set up hazards, and that's kind of going to be its main job this season. It's a very slept on low tier mon. I actually genuinely love Colossal, so I think if we use it well, we'll be fine.
Yeah, for sure. And now we have Snorlax going on the final round of round 10. And now let us know, Liv. You're here in call. Say hi.
Fine. So basically what happened here, I wanted Porygon Z. I wanted Porygon Z plus Magmortar. I'm saying that now because I can't get Magmortar because I only have 4 points left, and that's 5. This is very unfortunate. Mid, if you're watching us right now, I'm very not happy with you. Very. Snorlax is still cool though. I'll be completely honest. This mod should have never been around this late in the draft. Don't know how it was, but I like it. It's a fat Pokemon, very fat. Players kind of well with my team. I have enough good fighting checks between like between the Thundurus, the Dragapult, the Slowking, the Clefairy, and the Quillfish. I don't really care about the fighting weakness. It's cool ghost immunity, so it's kind of cool. Not a lot to say. People know what Snorlax does. It's just gonna be here. But yeah, That's
Kind
really
of be
it.
here. That's a good description for Snorlax for sure. That's funny. And now we have round 10. Oh, what's your biggest takeaway of the tail end of the draft? And we're slowly starting to scramble to get those pieces and those roles filled. What do you think about it so far?
So you're seeing a lot of budget mons go. I think the round 10 Garbodor is pretty nuts on Vivid 10. I absolutely love that Pokemon, and it's really nice for him to get that Spike Snack Rock with and things like that. Lander's Eye, even with just Sandforce, can be a major threat. So good pickup by JV, a little bit more of a potent offensive threat for his team. And it smashed me once last season, so very, very scary Pokemon nonetheless. But yeah, we're kind of seeing a lot more of those budget picks, those, oh no, I'm missing this, I need to round out my draft, something like that. So
Definitely. So now, guys, we are going to hop into round number 11, the final round of the draft. So this is going to be that round where we finish the rest of our points to see if we can find and fill those roles as best we possibly can. A lot of the players
and
are
I
going to...
will... Oh, sorry, my bad, go ahead.
No, go.
I will be dropping probably the commands for each of the coaches in the chat as the last round goes up, and definitely go check out their channel. Go drop them a sub. Their draft analysis should be going up at some point later today. Maybe it might be right after. I know I'm going to be publishing mine like right now. But go check out all the coaches and stuff like that. As I think that.
Please do, like he alluded to, for your favorite coach, drop in the chat exclamation point blank for the coach that you want to get the YouTube channel link for. For example, if you're a fan of the New Orleans Saints Snow, you want to put hashtag Snow. We have hashtag Men's, we have hashtag Snugglers. That way you get a link. You're already here to my channel, so you don't necessarily have to do it, but it's there as an option. Make sure you hop on in and subscribe here as well. And subscribe to your favorite coach so you can follow them this season. So with that being said, let's hop on into the very final round of the Season 5, the NCP. First pick, last round, we have Magmar. Tell us about Magmar, Liv.
Okay, so Mid sent me a Magmortar. I was very not happy. Mid, I'm still not happy with you. So instead of Magmortar, I got Baby Magmortar. Not baby, but just kind of baby. There was no fires in 4 points. Not even just like, oh, all the fires were bad. No, there were 0 fires in the 4 point tier. Probably an oversight. But nonetheless, the 3 point tier though had a couple. Heatmore didn't like it on the team. It was too slow. Flareon didn't like it on the team. I have two cleric options. It wasn't doing anything. Rapidash, I already have a physical mon at 105, and the only other one I was considering was Reboot. But I personally just like the bulk on Magmar a bit more, and with Flame Body, of course, it helps a bit with like Hex Pull and stuff like that. So I sort of just said, fuck it, I'll go with 2 extra points in the draft. Why not? And I have Magmar.
Nice. Love to see it. Solid pick last round. Thanks, Liv.
No problem. Bye.
Next week we have finishing out our champions team. Leafeon. Tell us about Leafeon, bro.
Yeah, so while my team isn't super ground weak, I do like having a ground resist. I have a ton of immunities, but I don't have a ground resist, and I wanted something to obviously not just auto boost to those types of mons. So I grabbed Leafeon. Grass is obviously just a solid defensive typing in itself. Leafeon is the defensive, evolution. It's 130 stat being in its defense. It gives me another Wish Passer. It gives me another Cleric. So a little bit of pressure taken off Licky. I don't want to have to bring it every single week as much as I love the guy. Can't bring him every week, so Leafeon's great in that sense. Potential niche setup sweeper with Swords Dance and, access to Chlorophyll, going fast and stuff like that. Knockoff utility. Overall solid mon for its price point. I really do like Leafeon a lot. It gives me also a Zera Aura check, which I lost to on matchup right now.
Oh man, we do love Zera Aura. So Dunsparce is going for, so this is one of those examples that we're like, oh man, we don't have very many points, let's pick up a Pokemon. So we have a Dunsparce coming here, and I believe is the only normal type on this team. It is. So this is the ghost switch into this team. So we also have Hydreigon, which is a pretty solid ghost check, but this is the immunity on the squad. Dunsparce could be pretty cheeky if it comes in some matchups. Maybe towards the end of the season we could see some Thunder Wave and some flinch shenanigans with, and then para flinch shenanigans, and because I think it's Serene Grace. So Dunsparce is going to be one of those Pokemon that if you disrespect it, maybe it'll just punch you in the forehead. So we'll see how Dunsparce does at this season with the Hydreigons here. And then we have Stunfisk, a pretty solid Pokemon. Let us know what Stunfisk does, my man.
I love Big Fisk, man. This is a phenomenal, fat, annoying ground. Obviously, really giving him another good rocker, which is really important. And I believe his ground type in general, which is, obviously incredibly important to have on a draft. He already did have the Lantern as an electric mini, but it's nice to have the ground type. Reliable rocker, static can be very annoying, and really just annoying and being a general nuisance to teams. And I know Davion had it in BBR. I know he really likes this one, so it definitely fits his playstyle well.
Returning to the team in a different one. Big beep beep. The bust Charger Bug. It's a pretty cool Pokemon. I know that our fellow commissioner Kurt absolutely hates this Pokemon, but it's a pretty good solid low tier mon. With the electric bug typing, it's able to come in and be not resistant, but it's able to be neutral to ground types, and being able to have that Eviolite to make it super bulky is really, really nice. And it does what it does really well. It's a good lead to be able to set up Sticky Web and Volt Switch out. That's all it really needs to do any single matchup. So Charger Bug is going to fill in that niche role to be able to set those Sticky Webs for this team, which could be pretty scary with Mew. If it's a set of Mew with Sticky Web, that could be really, really scary, as well as Crocodile. He's got a lot of solid defensive pieces on this team, and being able to set up Sticky Web for Alolan Marowak could also be really, really scary. So we'll see what he could do with it. We have Stack Attacka. What do you think about Stack Attacka going the very last in this team here?
So Kelly was trying to grab a little bit of a Trick Room option, obviously with his Glacier, so that definitely makes a little sense. It gives him a solid rocker. I think Stack getting Body Press this gen is super, super fire. This Pokemon is obviously incredibly bulky on the Fizdef side. Spidef side, not as much, but definitely not, super frail in that sense. Very strong Mon. You can kind of tailor make it to either get that attack boost with 14 defense IVs and a minus nature, I believe. Or you can obviously be the defense boosting behemoth, and with Body Press, it's much more viable this gen. You're not just Trick Room Sweeper.exe. Gives him another rocker, gives him a Steel type as well, which I think is very solid.
And self-procking Trick Room was really nice for that as well. And we have Vileplume coming up, the Poison Grass type. This is one of those Pokemon that just does not die. It does with the secondary poison typing, it takes away its immunity, not as immunity, its resistance to ground types. But being able to come in, be super thick and obnoxious and annoying, and being able to strength sap opponents is going to be really tough for some people to deal with. So Vileplume is going to be able to be that niche defensive wall, and being able to basically status anything that it wants to status is going to be really annoying for Vileplume for this team. So we'll see how he does with it this season. And now we have Togetic on my team. So now here's the thing. I'm going to make a note. I love Togetic. I really, really do. I didn't say this to the coach. I love this Pokemon a lot. It's got its downsides, right? It wants to run Eviolite. It's going to run Eviolite. It has to run Eviolite every single week. That makes it super, super thick. It's got a solid Spadef stat, which can come in and eat a lot of hits, so I can invest a lot in HP and in defense. It's bad because it hits a flying typing with the fairy typing, which means it is weak to rocks. So if it's a defogger that has to come in and get rid of rocks, that kind of sucks. But being able to have that thick ability to come in and soak up hits and roost things off is really, really nice. It's here to be a cleric. It's here to be an annoying status Pokemon. It still has access to Serene Grace, so if I can get that cheeky 40% chance to burn on a flamethrower, that would be really, really nice. But being able to be a solid check, a secondary check to ground types and to a fighting types, which is really, really nice for this team, as well as the cleric, because I wanted to take the pressure off some of the rest of the teammates, like mainly Slurpuff. Having Slurpuff as my only fairy type kind of made me iffy, so I wanted to get Togetic to kind of round that off. So we'll see if I can do work with it this season. I'm super excited about it. And now Golurk, tell us about Golurk with Shuckle King here.
So Golurk gives Shuckle a ground. It gives him more rocks. I believe it gives him a second ghost, but that's really not what Golurk is here for. I mean, Blastoise and Golurk are going to have completely different rules, so not the biggest deal in the world. Obviously, getting access to Poltergeist plus Earthquake is very scary. No guard dynamic punches can be very annoying. It also gets Iron Fist for, like Drain Punches, Ice Punches, Thunder Punches, things like that. So pretty solid, potent, offensive, low-tier Mon with decent natural bulk where it can pretty reliably get up rocks. It can also be a potential Rockfall Sweeper, so pretty good value by Shuckle here at the end. And it gives him that ground type that he needed.
Love to see it. Golurk was that threat in past generations, to see if he can repeat that on this team moving forward. And now we have Little Cheese, Pikachu. Pikachu is one of those picks that it looks like a meme, but if you disrespect it, it could put in a lot of work. Giving it Light Ball, this thing actually hits pretty decently hard. It gets solid coverage. It got buffed. Whether you want to call it a joke, it got buffed. It got Sing. It's only 55% accurate.
But
God,
why did you bring that up?
You had to. You had to.
The things that it actually does. No, you don't know the things that it actually really does.
It gets solid coverage, guys. It gets access to Surf for the ground types. It gets access to really strong hitting Thunders if he wants to set up the Rain, or it gets Thunderbolt, access to Volt Switch. Really solid Pokemon, both physically and especially it gets access to it's really hard hitting Volt Tackles, which is really, really nice. Pikachu could be pretty good if there's a wall that doesn't outspeed it. Pikachu can come in and just rip it apart. So that'll be super funny to see if 6-foot Hacks can expose that this season. And then we have another baby Pokemon. We have Torracat, the mascot pick for mid. What do you think about this one?
Option, it gives him Intimidate Pivot. Obviously, you can't run Boots like Instant can. But it gives him that Intimidate Pivot, obviously access to, pivot in and out and things like that. I think it was more so just a mascot pick for mid, to be completely honest, because he already has that fat, annoying pivot fire type. But, when you get low on points, you might as well grab something fun. And I think that's kind of what mid was going for here with Big Torracat. It has usefulness.
It could. We saw Steve do really well with it in the BBR, so see if he could do the same thing. We have Clawitzer coming in with Vivid. So Clawitzers are pretty solid offensive water type, getting access to pretty solid coverage. This thing could be pretty tough to deal with, and especially with terrain. So he has the dual terrain of electric terrain and grassy terrain. So with terrain pulse, this thing could be pretty solid, getting that electric and that grass type coverage to be able to hit opposing water types is actually super nice. So it's one of those niche picks that can actually do really, really well on a team. It's a really good form fitted for what he's got going on right now. So Clawitzer could be a really good offensive threat. And now we have Tyranitar, big pick, picked last. Here's the Sand. Tell us about Sand on this team.
Yeah, so he got his last round T-Tar, which obviously very, very cool. Now, typically, you don't see Drill T-Tar in a lot of draft leagues just because of the fact that it's pretty damn expensive, but they pair together really well. Tyranitar is an incredible Pokemon. Ridiculously fat Phys-F-wise and Spit-F-wise in the Sand. Obviously, that rock typing giving it that boost as it sets up Sand. Reliable rocker, really, really strong. It gives him his dark type. It gives him his ghost resist. I don't believe he actually has a normal on this team, right? Unless I'm tripping. So definitely a lot of pressure on T-Tar and checking those. But very, very versatile. It can Dragon Dance. It can Rock Polish. It can, just be fat rocks. It can be Assault Vest. It does miss Pursuit a ton, but definitely a great pickup by Matt. And great just draft planning and being able to ensure that he gets this last round and not jumping on it early and ensuring that he got his other things first. So, good stuff.
Definitely. Love to see it. Now we have Meowstic. We have a low tier going over to the Atlanta Victinis. Meowstic is a pretty cool psychic type Pokemon that can come in some matchups. Giving it access to prankster screens is really nice as a lead. Being able to have that versatility to give the rest of the squad a little bit of a boost in its defenses to set up what it wants to do or to pivot around a little bit freely. It's able to set those prankster thunder waves, which I know I love very much. So if there's that really fast Pokemon that is not immune to thunder wave, it can just slow it down a little bit, make it a little bit less of a threat. And can also be pretty decent offensively because he has access to both. As you can see on the screen here, he has the female and the male, so he can choose either or depending on the matchup. So depending on what he wants to do fit, he could do pretty well. And now we have Machamp. Tell us about Machamp.
This is the one I've really wanted to try a lot. It's Scuffed Conkeldurr. That's what Machamp is. It's not as good Conkeldurr, but still very good, very potent, strong wall break. It's access to Bullet Punch, which is a really cool priority move. It can throw off facades and knockoffs and a bunch of different options like that. I wish it got Drain Punch. It does not, but it can just close combat things instead. I have a big soft spot for Machamp. It's I love DPP OU. If those of you guys who have played Gen 4 OU, it's actually an OU Pokemon. It's a phenomenal lead. So I love using Machamp because of that, and I'm excited to see Kurt use it because you don't see people typically use it in standard draft leagues. So I'm hoping he does well with it.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be exciting to see what he does with that. For the very last pick of season number 5 NCP, we have Ludicolo. Ludicolo is going to fit onto the Rain team perfectly. So now you can say that maybe he's got a grass type or electric type weakness, but he's got a lot of offensive threats. This is a mono water team that I think that Kyle's going to do pretty well with. Ludicolo is a really solid Swift Swim sweeper, having access to both grass and water coverage with Hydro Pump and Energy Ball and Giga Drain is going to be super tough for teams to deal with. Ludicolo is going to be one of those Pokemon that he can tailor to each matchup. He has a couple Swift Swim sweepers, which is really nice, and it could become defensively. You never know. Ludicolo could be one of those Pokemon that could be low-key under the radar, really annoying for something to some teams to deal with. But pretty solid pickup for this team. A lot of water. They're real wet. It's waterworks over there with Kale and the Miami Dom fans. So we'll see how he does with this season. And that is going to be the end of the draft stream, guys. I really hope you guys did enjoy, and we appreciate you guys handling or coping with our technical difficulties. And it's been a fun time here. Owen, do you have any closing thoughts before we give them all the information about the league? He's on mute. He's probably because he's handling his dog, so we'll do that. I'll do it from here. So, guys, basically, if you guys are interested, we'd love for you guys to come on into the NCP Discord server where you can interact with all of the coaches, and they're going to be there for you guys to chat with. And also you can grab their coaches roles whenever they post their videos for their matchups, which are going to come up on Sundays, just like this draft stream today. You will get pinged whenever they post their videos, so that way you do not miss out on any uploads and any matches this season. So you can go over to the role select, hit their logo, and you can get pinged for them every single time they post, as well as pick'ems. We'll be posting pick'ems each and every week for the matchups, so you guys can see which teams are going to play whom, and you can pick to see who's your favorite and if your team is going to come out on top. So that way you guys can interact with us just a little bit more, and that'll be a fun time. So make sure you guys hop on over to the Discord server. If you type in !NCP, I believe is when it pops up the Discord server, so make sure you guys check that out. But if you go to the Twitter for the NCP, there will also be a link at the very top pinned for the Discord link for you to hop on into. So everybody is welcome. It is a public server, so come on in and have a good time with us. So like I alluded to before, all these matchups are going to be posted on Sundays, just like today. So every Sunday you can expect to see the NCP, and it's going to be some amazing games. We've got an amazing cast of coaches, guys. A lot of really colorful characters, a lot of really good talent. It's going to be a fun time here. So make sure you guys tune in and make that time in each and every Sunday. Pull up a chair, get your popcorn ready, and have a good time with us. Right after this draft stream is over, we're going to have our draft analysis go live. So if our coaches are in the chat, you can go ahead and do that. Make your draft analysis live so everyone else can go and follow and find out and pick those brains of theirs and what they picked and why they picked it and all that fun stuff. Do you have any closing thoughts on the draft stream, Owen?
Yeah, lots of crazy teams. I apologize, I had to like just go rogue. I don't know if you were talking to me for a second. Doorbell started ringing and nobody's home. But lots of really solid teams, amazing lineup this season. I'm really excited to see who can come and try their best to take the title from me, but I plan on keeping it for sure.
Yeah, for sure, guys. So make sure you guys go check out, again, exclamation point whatever team you want, to get a link to their channel. A lot of the draft analysis are already live. Head on over there, support your fellow favorite coaches, leave a like on their videos. Again, find out why they picked them, what their thought process was during the draft. It's going to be a fun time, and we'll catch you guys here next Sunday for week number 1 of the NCP. And with that being said, guys, we appreciate every single one of you for spending your Sunday here with us. We're gonna get the heck up out of here. Have a great rest of your day, and above all else, be nice. Peace.